"Your sister was always the talented one," Dad said. He said it with one hand around a sweating bottle of Sam Adams and the other resting on the back of Lacey's chair, like he was about to present her with a sash. On the tablet between us, Lacey's portfolio was still open. So were my notes, not vague notes, not little proofreading marks anybody could have made. My name was inside one of them. "Lacey, this is my fireplace sketch. Replace it with one of your own or credit me." Mom saw it. I knew because her thumb stopped rubbing the water ring beside her plate. Lacey saw her see it. Dad followed all three of our faces to the screen, leaned close enough to read the note twice, and then straightened. "Every creative person needs an editor," he said. The restaurant kept moving around us. A server sang happy birthday to somebody behind me. Ice rattled into glasses at the bar. My father took a drink and looked annoyed that I hadn't helped him make the moment normal again. I could have corrected him. I could have told him the fireplace was mine, the kitchen on the next page was mine, and the sunroom Lacey had just been praised for had begun on the back of my electric bill at 2 a.m. Instead, I looked at my sister and asked, "Did you know they were still in there?" 12 days earlier, Lacey had arrived at my condo carrying pad thai, 2 iced coffees, and the expression she usually wore right before asking me to ruin my week. "I come bearing carbohydrates," she announced. "You come bearing fish sauce. That too." She kicked the door shut with her heel. Lacey could enter a room like she'd been invited, even when she had used the emergency key I'd given Mom and specifically told Mom not to give her. "You can't keep using that key." "You didn't answer." I was in the shower. For 45 minutes. It was 6 minutes. I experienced 45 minutes of distress. She put the food on my kitchen island and turned in a slow circle, studying the condo as if she hadn't seen it the previous Sunday. My place was small, but it was the first space that had ever been completely mine. I'd painted the cabinets a smoky blue, Dad called depressing and Lacey called brave, which was how they each said they didn't like something. The dining table was a scratched oak drafting table I'd rescued from Bennett Daughters before Dad could throw it away. One corner still had a dark crescent where he used to set his coffee. Lacey pointed at the vase on my windowsill. "Is that new?" "No, I love it. You told me it looked like an urn. It grew on me. It hasn't moved." She peeled the wrappers off the straws, shoved one coffee toward me, and smiled. My sister had a smile that made people feel chosen. It was not fake. That was part of the problem. When Lacey loved you, she loved you in full color. She just expected you to handle the framing, wiring, and cleanup afterward. I opened the carton of noodles. What happened? Why does something have to have happened? "You brought dinner?" "I bring dinner. You bring half a muffin you didn't want and call it breakfast." She pressed both palms to the island. Her nails were painted a pale green that matched the sample board she'd been carrying around all week for the hotel pitch. "Okay," she said, "I need a tiny favor." "No. You don't know what it is. I know what tiny means when you say it. It is actually tiny this time." "Then you can do it. That logic is hostile." I ate a forkful of noodles while she watched me chew. Finally, she pulled her laptop from her bag. Dad had been talking about the Ashford Hotel for nearly 2 months. It was a 3-story brick building outside Columbus that had spent years being an insurance office and was now being turned into a 38-room boutique hotel. The owners, Martin and Celia Ashford, wanted somebody local. Dad wanted the job badly enough to start wearing his good boots to meetings. Lacey had met Celia at a Chamber of Commerce dinner and charmed her by knowing the name of a wallpaper pattern Celia remembered from her grandmother's house. That was Lacey. She stored beauty the way other people stored passwords. The Ashfords had asked to see a portfolio before the final meeting. I had assumed Lacey already had one. "I have the bones," she said, opening a folder on her desktop. The folder contained 73 files named things like Final, Final 2, Kitchen_new, Kitchen_new, _Eusethus, and one called Portfolio OK Seriously. I looked at her. "I know. You don't have bones. You have a shallow grave. That's why I need your organizational gift. My organizational gift is knowing how to name a file? You always make normal skills sound mean. She opened a presentation. The first slide showed a kitchen we'd completed in Dublin 2 years earlier. The photograph was gorgeous. White oak cabinets, deep green tile, morning light running across the island. The caption called it an exercise in organic movement. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means it flows." The refrigerator door hit the island until I reduced the overhang. Yes, and then it flowed. I clicked to the next slide. A bedroom appeared stretched so wide the bed looked like a landing strip. "Did you change the aspect ratio?" "I wanted it to fill the page. You've made the dresser 6 feet long. It's aspirational." I laughed before I could stop myself. Lacey grinned, relieved. Humor was often the first tool she pulled from the box. Affection was the second. Panic came third. She moved around the island and rested her chin on my shoulder. "Please, Mar, I just need consistency. Pick the strongest projects, make the pages talk to each other, maybe fix the captions. Move. You smell good. I smell like your shrimp. That's what it is." I nudged her away, but gently. "When is it due?" "Not Monday. That wasn't my question. Monday adjacent. Lacey, Saturday morning." It was Wednesday night. I shut the laptop. She caught it before the lid closed. "Wait, no, absolutely not. I had a client emergency. You spent yesterday comparing brass samples for a powder room. The wrong brass can make a room feel cheap. So can not paying the person who does your work." The words came out sharper than I intended. Her fingers went still on the laptop lid. For a second, she looked less like the bright younger sister everybody saw, and more like the woman who had sat on my bathroom floor after her fiancé left, wearing one of my old t-shirts and asking if people could sense something defective in her. "I wasn't asking you not to get paid," she said. "You weren't asking Dad to pay me either." "I'll ask him." "No, you won't. You'll say you tried, he'll tell you we all pitch in, and Mom will call me to explain that he's under pressure. That is an unfairly accurate impression of Mom." I stared at her. "Sorry," she said, "not the time." The kitchen filled with the faint buzz of my refrigerator. Outside, somebody dragged a trash bin down the alley. Lacey closed the laptop herself. "You're right." That surprised me enough that I didn't answer. I should have started earlier. I should be better at this by now. She rubbed at a little chip in her nail polish. "Dad told the Ashfords I'd put together a retrospective of my best work. He used the word retrospective. Mara. I'm 31. I don't want a retrospective. It sounds like I died." "Then tell him you need more time." I did. "And?" He said professionals meet deadlines. I nearly said, "He's right," because that was how deeply Dad's voice had settled into me. Instead, I opened my coffee and pushed the straw through the lid. Lacey watched me. "He also said this meeting is about more than the hotel." There it was. More than how? She bit the inside of her cheek. "He's been talking about stepping back." Dad had been talking about stepping back since his 58th birthday, usually while carrying something too heavy so we would protest that he was still young. He was 63 now and had recently started rubbing his right wrist after long days, though he stopped whenever anyone noticed. "He told me we're going to discuss the future after the pitch," Lacey said. "We, the family. But he told you first." He mentioned it. "During what? A drive?" "Dad and Lacey took drives. Dad and I took inventory." I picked up my fork again, though the noodles had turned into a cold knot. "What exactly did he mention?" "I don't know exactly. Creative leadership, me taking more client-facing responsibility, you overseeing operations. He was brainstorming. He has a strange way of brainstorming and complete job descriptions. Mara, nothing's decided. You're building a portfolio of your best work for the meeting before the meeting where nothing's decided." Her face tightened. "That's not why I came here. It's at least in the car." "What does that mean?" "It means maybe you didn't bring the knife, but you knew it was in the glove compartment." She backed away from the island as if I'd shoved her. That should have satisfied me. It didn't. Lacey picked up her bag, then put it down. "You think I'm trying to steal your job? I don't know what my job is. It changes whenever you need something. That's not fair." "No, it's efficient." She flinched again. I hated that I noticed. I hated more that some small, exhausted part of me wanted her to. Then she did something I hadn't expected. She turned the laptop around, opened the messy portfolio folder, and began deleting slides. "What are you doing?" "Making it mine. You're deleting the Henderson kitchen. You fixed the layout. I fixed the refrigerator clearance. You redesigned the whole island. You picked the green tile. So I'll show the tile." The next slide was the Kessler sunroom. She deleted that too. "Lacey, you did the windows. Because the ones you specified weren't rated for the span." "Exactly." She clicked through the projects asking who had done what. The answers were not clean. They never had been. She had imagined a curved banquette. I had worked out how to fit it without blocking the vent. I had designed a set of walnut shelves. She had chosen the asymmetry that made them interesting. She had convinced a cautious client to use burgundy cabinets. I had found the particular burgundy that didn't turn purple under LED lights. By the time we reached the end, she had removed almost everything. She sat back on the stool. "Well, here's my retrospective." There were 5 slides. One was a mood board. One was the elongated bedroom. I laughed. I didn't mean to. Lacey laughed too, and then, to my horror, her eyes filled. "Oh, come on," I said softly. "I'm not doing it on purpose." "You are a little." "I'm really not." She grabbed a paper napkin and blotted under both eyes with the care of someone protecting mascara. "I know you do a lot. I know I dump things on you, but I didn't know you thought none of it was mine. I don't think that. You just compared me to an armed passenger." That metaphor got away from me. She gave a wet, unwilling snort. I turned the laptop back toward myself. That was the moment I could have stopped it. I have replayed it enough times to know that no one forced my hands onto the keyboard. Not Dad, not Lacey, not the Ashfords whom I had never met. I made the choice because I was angry, and because I loved her, and because those two feelings had lived together so long they had learned to sound exactly alike. "We can make it honest," I said. Lacey lowered the napkin. "What does that mean?" "It means we label collaborative work as collaborative. We show your original concepts and the final builds. We explain the changes." Her whole face brightened, but she tried to contain it. "Are you sure?" "No." "Okay, and I'm not doing it for you. I'll set up the structure. You fill in your own captions." "Absolutely. I mean it." "I know. You're going to hate my notes. I already hate your notes. You've never followed my notes. I follow the ones that are emotionally supportive." I opened a new presentation and typed Bennett Daughters, selected residential work on the first slide. Lacey leaned against my shoulder again, lighter this time. Neither of us noticed that the title did not contain either of our names. For the next 3 hours, we built something that looked less like a shallow grave and more like a respectable history of a company. Lacey wrote captions while I standardized fonts, corrected dates, and replaced low-resolution photographs. Every few minutes, she read a sentence aloud and waited for my face to tell her whether it was nonsense. A dialogue between natural materials and contemporary restraint. The wood talks, the wood converses. With what? The restraint. Delete it. You hate art. I hate hostage negotiations between nouns. She deleted it, laughing, then wrote, "White oak softened the room without making it feel rustic." "Better," I said. "You could say that with more surprise." The work was good when we let it be what it was. Lacey had always been excellent at sensing what clients wanted before they had language for it. I was good at finding the point where want met walls, budgets, and gravity. On the page, the before and after sequence made our collaboration visible in a way the finished rooms never did. For the Kessler sunroom, we included her original sketch of a glassy, plant-filled space, followed by my revised window plan and a photograph of the completed room. Under the images, Lacey wrote, "Concept by Lacey Bennett. Technical redesign and final space planning by Mara Bennett." She hesitated before typing my name. I noticed. She noticed me noticing. "I'm trying to remember what the actual title is," she said. "Operations manager." "No, I mean for the design credit. I don't have one." That's stupid. Yes. She typed my name without a title. At 1 in the morning, we reached the Franklin fireplace. The original wall had been a blank stretch of beige drywall with a television mounted high enough to cause neck injuries. Lacey had proposed limestone all the way to the ceiling. The clients loved the idea until they saw the price. I'd sketched a lower plaster surround with walnut storage on both sides, then found a local carpenter who could build it within budget. Lacey inserted my sketch. "That's not yours," I said. "I know it's not mine. I mean, it shouldn't be in your section. It's one of the strongest things in the project. Then credit it." "I will." She added a temporary red note beside the image while she searched for the finished photograph. I wrote the reminder beneath it. "Lacey, this is my fireplace sketch. Replace it with one of your own or credit me." She read it and groaned. "That sounds like you're preparing evidence. It's a note. You use punctuation in notes. It's threatening." I used a period. "Exactly." By the time she left, there were red comments all over the working file. Some were reminders to confirm dates. Others explained construction changes or flagged places where the language gave her credit for decisions I'd made. The plan was simple. Lacey would finish the captions Thursday, I would clean the file Friday, and she would export a final PDF for the Ashfords Saturday morning. "Send me your invoice," she said at the door. "You're paying me?" "Don't sound so shocked." "With what?" "My money. Dad's not reimbursing you? I'm not asking him." That answer softened something I didn't want softened. She kissed the air beside my cheek and lifted the takeout bag. "Look at me cleaning up after myself. You're taking my leftovers." Growth isn't linear. At work the next morning, Dad was standing in the sample library with a cabinet hinge in his palm. Bennett Daughters operated out of an old brick ranch house that had once belonged to a dentist. The waiting room was now our showroom. The bedrooms held samples and desks, and the former kitchen was still a kitchen, except no one trusted the oven. Dad wore jeans, a blue work shirt, and the expression of a man personally betrayed by hardware. "Feel this," he said. I hadn't taken off my coat yet. He handed me the hinge. I opened and closed it. "It's a hinge. It feels cheap. It's our mid-range supplier. They changed something. It's 40% less than the German one." He took it back and snapped it shut beside his ear. "Lacey specified it for the Bowman cabinets. Then talk to Lacey. She's meeting the upholsterer. Then wait. The order has to go in by 10. I looked at him. He looked at the hinge. That was how Dad asked for help. I set down my bag, pulled up the Bowman estimate, and found enough room to upgrade the hinges if we changed the drawer inserts. Dad nodded as though the answer had been lying there waiting for both of us. "Good," he said. "I knew you'd figure it out." He started toward his office. "Lacey and I are working on the portfolio," I called after him. He turned. "What portfolio?" "For the Ashfords." "Oh, her book." "Good. She needs somebody to make it presentable. It's firm work. We're showing collaborative projects. Of course they're collaborative. We're a family company." He said this as if collaboration were a weather condition that removed the need to name anybody. "Some of the designs are mine." Dad's eyebrows lifted, not in disagreement, but impatience. Nobody's saying they aren't. Then it should be easy to say they are. He studied me for a moment. Behind him, the copier started grinding out a set of invoices. Dad's right hand went to his left wrist and squeezed once. "You girls work out the captions," he said. "I trust you." Then he left me holding the upgraded hinge order. Mom arrived around 11 with banana bread wrapped in foil and 3 bags of decorative gourds. "You're early," I said. "For what?" "Fall. It is September. It's 86 degrees. The calendar doesn't care about the temperature." She arranged the gourds along the showroom mantel, placing one directly in front of a tile sample clients needed to see. Diane Bennett believed every flat surface was suffering from loneliness. Her hip had healed well. Most days she walked without a limp, though she still used one when she wanted Dad to carry groceries or me to stop objecting to something. She set a slice of banana bread on a napkin beside my keyboard. "Did Lacey find you last night?" "That depends. Did you give her my emergency key?" Mom became very interested in a ceramic pumpkin. It's for emergencies. She had pad thai. Maybe she was afraid it would get cold. Mom, you weren't answering. I was showering. Well, she couldn't know that from the hallway. I moved the banana bread away from a stack of contracts. You cannot give out my key. I didn't give it out. I gave it to your sister. I waited. Mom sighed. I'll get it back. She wouldn't. Lacey would lose it before Mom asked. Was it about the portfolio? She asked. Yes. Your father says the hotel people are very sophisticated. They own a hotel, Mom. They're not ambassadors. He's nervous. Dad doesn't get nervous. Of course he does. He just turns it into errands. That was so accurate, I looked at her. She smiled and sliced another piece of banana bread for herself. Mom could identify Dad's machinery perfectly. She simply believed the rest of us should stand clear while it ran. I think this could be wonderful for Lacey, she said. It could be wonderful for the company. Yes, that too. And some of the work in the portfolio is mine. She chewed thoughtfully. Well, you've always made each other better. That isn't the same thing. No, but it's a lovely thing. Her phone chimed. She checked it, then said almost casually, my follow-up with Dr. Rosenthal got moved to Tuesday. Could you take me? Where's Dad? He has the Miller walkthrough. Lacey? Tuesday is her busiest day. You don't know that, she told me. Before or after you asked me? Mom folded the foil over the banana bread with unnecessary care. I can drive myself. There it was. The wounded independence that had canceled more of my plans than any direct request. I'll take you, I said. She touched my shoulder. I knew I could count on you. 11 years earlier, I'd heard the same sentence while turning down the Cincinnati studio. Mom had been facing surgery. Dad couldn't run the business, manage the house, and take her to physical therapy. Lacey had just landed her first major solo client. 6 months, everyone had said. Nobody had lied exactly. They had just stopped counting. Friday night, Lacey came back to my condo without food and used the key again. I'm taking it when you leave. You keep threatening me with boundaries. I'm trying one out. She opened the portfolio. She had completed the captions, and most of them were good. A few had quietly shifted from we to I. I changed them back. Lacey watched. Dad says too many credits make it confusing. Dad read this. He looked at a few pages. When? This afternoon. You said we'd finish it together. We are finishing it together. After he edited it. He didn't edit. He reacted. By removing my name? He said the Ashfords want to understand my point of view. They're hiring Bennett daughters. I know. Do you? She stood and walked to the window. The alley light caught her reflection, laying her face over the dark glass. You think I don't know what you gave up, she said. I hadn't mentioned Cincinnati. Do you? I asked. She turned. You think I never noticed that everybody calls you first? Dad, Mom, the contractors, me? You think being the talented one feels good when nobody trusts you to do anything that matters? That landed somewhere I wasn't prepared to defend. She came back to the table. Put your name on every piece that's yours. Lacey, I mean it. We spent another 2 hours correcting the credits. When we finished, she exported a review copy so she could check it on her tablet in the morning. I watched her save it in a folder labeled Ashford Final. Delete the old versions, I said. I might need them. You won't know which is which. I'll rename them. Do it now. She made an exaggerated show of changing one file to old do not use, then held up both hands. Professional, she said. The next morning, Dad called me 9 minutes before the meeting to ask how many square feet of tile we'd used in the Henderson kitchen. Lacey called 2 hours later, talking so fast I had to hold the phone away from my ear. They loved it. Celia actually touched my arm and said she could see how people would feel in the rooms. That's good. It's huge. I know. We're going to dinner tonight. Mom's making a reservation. I have plans. No, you don't. I could. 7 o'clock. Dad wants all of us there. By dessert, he had toasted Lacey twice and referred to the portfolio as proof of her leadership 3 times. Then she opened it on the tablet. Then I saw the red note beside my fireplace sketch. Then Dad told me who had always been talented. And when I asked Lacey whether she knew the notes were still there, she looked down at the screen and whispered, "I knew your name wasn't." For a moment, nobody moved. Dad's hand remained on the back of her chair. Mom stared at Lacey as if she could revise the sentence by looking disappointed enough. "What do you mean, my name wasn't?" I asked. Lacey tapped the tablet screen, closing the note. Behind it, the caption read, "A custom plaster and walnut fireplace created a warmer focal point while preserving the client's budget. No designer listed, no collaboration mentioned. Just a fireplace that had apparently created itself." "Dad thought all the names were distracting," she said. Dad pulled out the empty chair across from me and sat down. I thought the presentation needed a clear voice. "You removed the credits. We streamlined them. You streamlined my name. Don't be dramatic, Mara." The server appeared with a coffee pot, took one look at our table, and made the experienced decision to keep walking. I swiped to the Kessler sunroom. The caption we had written together was gone. So was the one on the burgundy kitchen. So was the paragraph explaining that Lacey had developed the original concept while I had redesigned the cabinetry and lighting after the budget changed. The red comments remained because she had exported the wrong version. It was almost funny. They had erased me so carelessly that my instructions on how to erase me were still visible. "When did you change it?" I asked. Lacey's voice was low. "This morning, before the meeting." "Yes?" "After I spent Friday putting the credits back." Dad leaned forward. The Ashfords weren't asking for a list of every person who touched every project. They wanted to see whether Lacey had a cohesive point of view. They asked for Bennett Daughter's portfolio. They connected with Lacey. "Did you tell them I designed any of this?" He sighed through his nose. That sigh had ended hundreds of conversations in my life. It meant the reasonable part was over, and whatever happened next was my fault. "Mara, you're an important part of this company. That wasn't my question. You know what your sister's like in a room. People respond to her. I know. You hate those meetings. I hate being brought into a meeting after somebody promises something we can't build. That's exactly what I mean. You're better behind the scenes, because you've kept me there." Mom reached for my wrist. "Honey." I pulled my hand away before she touched me. Her face fell. Dad saw her face fall, and his hardened. "There is no need to punish your mother." I moved my hand. "Your mother planned this dinner because she wanted to celebrate both of you." Mom opened her mouth, then closed it. Even she couldn't make that sentence survive contact with the two champagne glasses in front of Lacey and the water in front of me. "Both of us?" I asked. "We're celebrating the company," she said faintly. Dad picked up the bottle the server had left and poured the rest into his glass. "Fine. Since we're apparently doing this here, yes, I've been considering making Lacey creative director when I step back from client development." The restaurant seemed to tilt by half a degree. Lacey looked at him. "Dad." "What? She already knows. I knew you were considering something. Well, this is the something." I waited for the rest. Dad drank. "And me?" I asked. "You'll continue overseeing operations. In my current position, we can discuss titles. After you give Lacey hers, I'm not giving her anything. She earned this opportunity." Lacey whispered his name again, but he ignored her. "What does creative director mean?" I asked. "Authority over design decisions? Hiring? Project assignments? Compensation?" "For God's sake, Mara, I haven't drafted a constitution. You drafted enough to tell her in the car." His face went red around the collar. He hated being caught with a plan before he was ready to defend it. Dad liked decisions to arrive at the family table already wearing the clothes of inevitability. "This attitude is exactly why client-facing leadership has never suited you," he said. "You turn everything into a cross-examination." I asked what the job is. "You asked because you want to make your sister feel like a fraud." Lacey folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. I looked at her. "Do you feel like one?" Her eyes lifted. They were bright, furious, and embarrassed. "That's a horrible question. It's a question. No, it's a weapon." Mom said, "Please don't do this to each other." I almost laughed. We were sitting in a booth beneath a framed print that said, "Gather with gratitude." Somebody had burned a steak nearby. The smell of char and garlic hung over us while Mom begged the two people with the least power at the table not to hurt each other. "I'm not doing anything to her," I said. "I'm asking why she took my work into a meeting under her name." "It wasn't under my name," Lacey said. "The cover said Bennett Daughters. The cover did. The Ashfords know it's a firm. Do they know I exist?" She didn't answer. Dad pushed his chair back. "Enough. The portfolio got us to the next stage. That benefits everybody." "What next stage?" "They want initial concepts for a sample room and the first floor common areas. From Lacey? From us?" There it was. The family pronoun. Big enough to hold my labor. Too small to hold my name. Mom tried to summon the server with a desperate little wave. "Let's get the check." Lacey's folded napkin tore between her fingers. I stood. "Mara," Mom said, "I'm leaving. We haven't had coffee. I think I'm awake." Dad shook his head. "Walk out if you want. Monday morning, we're still going to have a business to run." He meant it as proof that the problem would pass. The business always ran. Deliveries arrived late. Clients changed their minds. Mom needed rides. Lacey panicked. Dad turned nervousness into errands, and I kept the hinges from feeling cheap. I put $30 under my water glass. Dad glanced at it. "I can pay for your dinner." "I know." Outside, the evening air was warm and damp. The restaurant sat at the edge of a shopping center between a pet supply store and a salon with pink neon in the windows. I reached my car before I heard Lacey's heels behind me. "Mara, wait." I unlocked the door. "Please." I turned. "Did you know he was going to announce it tonight?" "No." "Did you know he wanted you to remove my credits?" "Yes." "And you did it." She stopped a few feet away. Her mascara had smudged under one eye. "He looked through the presentation this morning and said it made me look like I couldn't finish anything without you. You can't." She recoiled. I closed my eyes. That was cruel. It was honest. Those aren't opposites. A car pulled into the space beside us, its headlights washing over her. An older couple got out, arguing cheerfully about whether they'd locked their house. We stepped closer to my car to let them pass. Lacey lowered her voice. "I was sitting in the parking lot with Dad 10 minutes before the meeting. He said the portfolio was supposed to show my vision, not our internal process. He said if I walked in explaining every handoff, the Ashfords wouldn't trust me to lead. So you deleted my name. I used the copy he'd edited. You had the final file." I panicked. "You always panic and somehow I lose something. That's not fair. Tell me which part isn't true." She wrapped both arms around herself. "You think I wanted tonight to happen like that? I don't care how you wanted it to happen. That's easy for you to say." I stared at her. "What is?" "You don't have to want things out loud. You can stand back and be better than everybody, and if they don't notice, you get to hate them for it." The words landed cleanly. Lacey saw that they had and looked sorry, which made them worse. "I put your name on every project," she said. I did. Then Dad looked at it and suddenly I could see what he saw. Mara's plan, Mara's revision, Mara solved this, Mara fixed that. I looked like an idea generator who needed adult supervision. "You're 31. I know how old I am. You could have told him the portfolio was accurate." "I could have." She wiped under her eye. "And you could have submitted your own work to Cincinnati after Mom recovered." The shopping center went strangely quiet, though traffic was still moving on the road behind her. "You don't get to use that." "I'm not using it. You absolutely are. I'm saying Dad didn't make every choice in your life." "No. Sometimes Mom helped." Her face twisted. "That's not what I meant. I know exactly what you meant. You're saying I stayed so I consented to all of it. I'm saying you keep rescuing us and then acting shocked that we expect it." I opened my car door. Lacey caught the top edge, not hard enough to stop me if I pulled. "I'm sorry," she said. "I am. I should have told Dad no. I should have called you before the meeting. I should have checked the export. Pick one and I'll apologize for it all night. You're apologizing for the wrong thing. What's the right thing? You wanted the job more than you wanted the truth. She released the door. I got in and drove home with my phone buzzing in the cup holder. Mom called twice. Lacey sent 4 messages, deleted 2, then sent a 5th that said only, "I'm sorry." Dad sent nothing. At my condo, I locked the door and slid the emergency key off Lacey's ring after realizing she had left it in my car's passenger side handle. That was so completely her that I sat in the driver's seat and laughed until I sounded a little unwell. Upstairs, I opened my laptop. The final portfolio was still on my desktop, the honest one. I clicked through the pages slowly, not looking at Lacey's work this time. I looked at mine. The adjusted sightline in the Henderson kitchen, the window rhythm in the Kessler sunroom, the fireplace sketch, the walnut shelving, a mudroom bench designed around the way the client dropped her purse the second she entered the house. None of it was spectacular alone. That had always been Dad's measure of talent, the thing that made somebody gasp before it existed. My rooms made more sense after people lived in them. At 9 Monday morning, Dad placed the Ashford floor plans on my desk. "Lacey has a client call," he said. "Block out 3 sample room options so she has something to react to." I looked at the plans, then at him. No. He smiled automatically, waiting for the joke to finish. I slid the plans back across my desk. The smile went away. "Excuse me?" "Lacey is the creative lead. Let her lead." "Mara, don't be childish. I'm doing my job. Your job is whatever this company needs. That's the problem." His gaze sharpened. Around us, phones rang, the copier clicked, and somebody in the sample room dropped what sounded like an entire box of drawer pulls. Dad lowered his voice. "You want to discuss your position? Fine. We'll discuss it after the Ashford proposal." "No. We'll discuss it before I do another piece of design work." He stared at me long enough that my hands began to shake beneath the desk. Then he picked up the floor plans. "We'll see how long this lasts," he said. So would I. The first test came 14 minutes later. Rick Alvarez, our lead installer, appeared in my doorway holding his phone and a tape measure. Rick was 50, broad-shouldered, and permanently dusted with something pale. Even when he wore a clean shirt, he looked as if a wall had recently happened to him. "Morning," he said. "Quick question on the Bowman kitchen." "Morning." He showed me a photograph of the half-installed cabinetry. Lacey centered the range hood on the wall. Electrician centered the range between the windows. We've got 4 inches of disagreement. Normally, I would have pulled up the drawings, found the mistake, and redlined a solution before Dad finished his second cup of coffee. Instead, I asked, "Which plan did the installers receive?" "Revision C." "Then install according to Revision C. Revision C has the hood centered on the wall." "Okay, the range is not." "I'm hearing that." Rick lowered the phone. "Are you sick?" "No. Did I do something?" "No." He leaned closer. "Did Glenn do something?" From the sample room, Dad called, "I can hear you, Rick." Rick didn't turn. "That's not a no." Despite myself, I smiled. "Send the photo to Lacey," I said. "It's her design. She can decide whether to move the hood or revise the cabinet widths. That'll hold us up." "I know." He studied me for another second, then nodded. "Revision C. Got it." He left, and 30 seconds later, Lacey's phone rang in the office across the hall. I could hear only her side. 4 inches? A pause. "No, don't move anything yet." Another pause. "Yes, I understand you have people standing there." Longer pause. "Can I call you back?" Dad passed my doorway without looking in. At 10, Lacey appeared with the Bowman file tucked against her chest. "Do you know if we have room to reduce the cabinet beside the hood?" she asked. "The approved measurements are in the project folder." I looked. "Then you know what I know." "No, I know what's written down." "You remember everything." "That isn't a job description." She shut my door behind her. "Can we not do this in front of Rick?" "We're not." Rick left. He knows. Rick has eyes. She dropped into the chair across from my desk. Her hair was pulled into a low knot that had started neat and was now releasing strands around her face. "If I narrow the cabinet, the doors won't match the lowers," she said. "Then don't narrow it. If I move the hood, it won't align with the tile pattern. Then don't move it." Her mouth flattened. "You're enjoying this." I wasn't. That irritated me more than if I had been. I'm answering exactly the way Dad says I answer clients. Negatively. You know there's a third solution. There might be 12. And you already know the best one. I looked at the folder. I did know. The windows weren't symmetrical because one had been shifted years earlier during an addition. The hood would look centered if Rick extended the left side panel and adjusted the open shelves, but it required a field modification and a different filler piece. The answer sat behind my teeth. Lacey watched me find it. Then she stood. "Fine." At the door, she paused. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you not to punish the Bowmans. The Bowmans hired Bennett daughters. They'll get a solution." From who? Creative leadership. She left hard enough to make the glass in my framed floor plan tremble. Around noon, Rick sent an updated photograph to the group thread. Lacey had found the side panel solution. Her dimensions were too shallow by half an inch, but Rick caught it before cutting. I typed, "Nice solve." I deleted it. Then I typed, "Confirm final field dimensions before fabrication." That was operations. Lacey reacted with a thumbs up. It felt obscene. I spent lunch creating a list of every task I performed in an average month. Scheduling, purchasing, vendor coordination, estimates, change orders, payroll review, installation logistics, client handoff. Then came the category I had never named because naming it would have forced a conversation nobody wanted: design development. Under it, I listed space planning, technical drawings, material substitutions, lighting revisions, construction troubleshooting, presentation cleanup, and client rescue. The last one wasn't professional language, so I changed it to expectation management. At 2, Dad came in carrying the Ashford plans again. He didn't set them down. Lacey says she can handle the initial concepts. Good. She also says you've decided not to answer normal questions. I answered her. You made her play 20 questions over a cabinet panel. I let her solve her own design problem. Dad pulled the guest chair away from my desk and sat. He held the rolled plans between his knees like a cane. Whatever happened Saturday night, we do not bring family drama into the office. You announced a company promotion at family dinner. It wasn't a promotion. It was a possibility. Then why am I already supposed to treat her like creative director? Because she's leading this proposal. Great. She can lead it. His jaw moved. Do you want the Ashford job? Do I want the company to get it? Yes. Then act like it. How? By helping your sister. What does help mean? You know what it means. I want you to say it. He stood abruptly. His wrist flexed around the plans, and I saw pain cross his face before he hit it. You don't get to hold 11 years of teamwork hostage because you saw a comment in a file. It wasn't the comment. It was a mistake. The comment was the mistake. Taking out my name was a decision. Dad looked toward the open doorway. He lowered his voice. You have always understood the difference between doing the work and selling the work. Lacey can sell it, and I can do it. That isn't what I said. It never is. He stared at me with something that wasn't quite anger. Fear, maybe, though at the time I mistook it for contempt. Send me whatever this is about your position, he said. We'll look at it. I turned my monitor so he could see the list. His eyes moved down the page. He stopped at design development. You're seriously doing this. You told me to act professionally. I told you not to make a scene. I'm not making one. That's worse somehow. He left with the plans. At 6, Lacey was still in her office. Through the glass partition, I could see tracing paper spread across her desk and 3 coffee cups arranged around her, like emotional support animals. I gathered my things. She didn't look up when I passed, but she said, Do you have the standard King Room CAD blocks? They're in resources, hospitality, room templates. I checked. There are only queens. The king blocks are nested in the furniture file. Why? Because you created that folder. Oh. I put on my coat. Mara? I waited. Is 36 inches enough on both sides of the bed? For what? Circulation. What does the hotel require? I don't know yet. Then that's your first question. She pressed her pencil to the paper until the tip snapped. I went home. Mom's follow-up appointment was the next morning. She came out of her house wearing lipstick, pearl earrings, and a limp she had not possessed when she walked through my office carrying gourds. Is it hurting? I asked. Only when I first get moving. You were moving yesterday. Yesterday was different. She got into my car carefully, then reached for the seat warmer. It's 80 degrees. My hip likes heat. Your hip is a tropical plant. She smiled. That's why I raised such warm daughters. Lacey removed my name from the portfolio. Mom turned off the seat warmer. For 3 blocks, she watched ranch houses pass outside the window. She told me, she said. When? Sunday. Did she tell you Dad asked her to? She said your father thought the credits were confusing. Did you? I thought the whole thing looked very professional. That's not an answer. Mara, you know I don't understand design. You understand names. She folded her hands over her purse. Your father has been worried about Lacey. Why? She needs direction. She's 31. Adults need direction. Apparently, mine is always towards somebody else's emergency. Mom's lips pressed together. I'm not your enemy. I didn't say you were. You don't have to say things for people to feel them. At the medical building, I parked beneath a sycamore tree. Mom didn't open her door. He has worried about you, too, she said. What does that look like? He says you work too much. For him. He says you don't date. I do date. I just don't submit reports. He says you've gotten very set in your ways. I laughed once. That's worry? It's how your father talks. No, it's how Dad avoids saying anything that might cost him. Mom looked wounded again, and this time I let her. In the waiting room, a television played a home renovation show with the captions on. A cheerful couple knocked down a wall after a man in safety glasses assured them it wasn't load-bearing. Mom watched for a while, then nudged me. Would you ever do one of those shows? No. You'd be good. I thought Lacey was the one people responded to. I didn't say she'd be good. She'd argue with the host. That was true. Lacey once spent 20 minutes correcting a radio ad because the announcer pronounced credenza oddly. Mom took a mint from her purse. Your father told me about creative director a month ago. I looked at her. She unwrapped the mint slowly. A month. He hadn't decided. He had decided enough to tell everybody but me. He was trying to find a place for Lacey. She has a place. Her name is painted on the building. So is yours. On the building, not on the work. Mom's name was painted there too, though she had never been employed by Bennett Daughters. Dad had chosen the name when Lacey and I were in college. At the time, it felt like a promise. Mom slipped the mint into her mouth. You've always had a place, Mara. What place? She didn't answer immediately. That was answer enough. I drove her home after the doctor said her hip looked excellent. She stopped limping before we reached the pharmacy. Back at the office, Dad had left the Ashford plans on my chair. A yellow sticky note sat on top. Need 3 viable options by Thursday. Please don't make me ask twice. I carried the plans into Lacey's office. She looked up from a page covered in eraser marks. Dad says you need these, I said. Her eyes dropped to the sticky note. He left them for you. I know. She looked tired enough that the skin beneath her eyes had gone gray. For one dangerous second, she was simply my sister, overwhelmed and waiting for me to pull up a chair. Then she turned the sticky note over and wrote something on the back. She handed it to me. I'm not asking twice either. What's this? I asked. My answer to Dad. She took the plans from me and added them to the mess on her desk. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I stood there wondering what would happen if, for once, neither daughter moved. Lacey did move eventually. She picked up her pencil, squared the Ashford plans with the edge of her desk, and said, "I have a review with Dad at 4. Okay. He thinks you're coming. I'll come." Her eyes narrowed. "As operations manager," I added. "Right." I went back across the hall and spent the next 2 hours doing work nobody could accuse me of withholding. I confirmed delivery dates, rebuilt a labor schedule after a plumber moved his vacation, and persuaded a tile supplier to replace 6 cracked boxes without charging freight. At 3:30, I sent Dad the task list I had made, along with a short note. "These are the responsibilities I currently perform. Going forward, design development tasks require a separate title, compensation, and project credit. Until we discuss that structure, I will limit my work to operations. I read it 7 times before sending. On the 8th read, it sounded hostile. On the 9th, it sounded weak. I sent it anyway." Dad did not respond. At 4, he walked into the conference room carrying coffee and said, "Let's see where we are," as though no other communication had occurred. Lacey had pinned 3 guest room concepts to the wall. They were rough, but not bad. One used a deep blue painted arch behind the bed. Another wrapped the headboard wall in narrow oak slats. The third had warm plaster, rust-colored textiles, and a built-in bench beneath the window. Dad stood with his arms crossed. "Which one do you like?" Lacey asked. "That's not the question. It's a question. The question is which one tells the Ashfords we understand their property." Lacey pointed to the blue scheme. "The arch repeats the shape of the lobby windows. It's paint. It's a design element. It looks like paint. Most painted design elements do." I sat at the end of the table with the project schedule open in front of me. Dad glanced at me, waiting for translation. I didn't provide it. He moved to the oak slat concept. "This is expensive. It's a boutique hotel. That doesn't mean they want to wallpaper the place in lumber. It's one wall, in 38 rooms. They asked for a sample room, not a multiplication lesson. Every sample becomes a multiplication lesson." That was something I would have said. Hearing it from Dad made me irrationally protective of the slats. He looked at the plaster scheme. "This one's safest." Lacey's shoulders dropped. "Of course you like the safest one. I like the one we can build. You haven't asked what it costs." "I know what plaster costs." "That isn't plaster." Dad touched the sample. "It says plaster. It's a mineral finish. So expensive paint." Lacey stared at him. "This is a productive environment." He turned to me. "Thoughts?" "The built-in bench affects mechanical access under the window. We need to confirm the unit location. The slats have the longest lead time. All 3 schemes use fixtures from vendors we already work with. Design thoughts. That's my operational review. Don't be ridiculous." Lacey pulled the rust-colored textile sample off the wall. "She told you what she's doing." Dad's head turned. "Excuse me? She sent you the list. This meeting isn't about Mara's list. It became about her list when you asked her to do something on it." Dad's face settled into that stillness he used with subcontractors right before reminding them who signed the checks. "I don't need the 2 of you coordinating some kind of labor action in my conference room." Lacey laughed. "We can barely coordinate lunch. This isn't funny." "No, it's deeply embarrassing." He looked between us. "Are either of you interested in getting this project?" "Yes," Lacey said. "Yes," I said. "Then tell me which concept we're sending." "It's Lacey's decision," I said. Dad slapped one hand against the table. Not hard, but every sample jumped. "Fine, lead." He said it to Lacey like a punishment. She went pale, then looked at the 3 boards. Her gaze stayed on the oak slats, longest. That one was the most visually striking. It was also the least connected to the building and the most expensive to repeat. She selected the blue arch. Dad gave a short, humorless laugh. "Paint. You said lead. I didn't say make the wrong choice. You didn't say there was an answer key. There is always an answer key. It's called experience." The conference room went quiet. Lacey unpinned the blue board, rolled it carefully, and placed it in the portfolio tube. "We'll send this one," she said. Dad looked at me again. I kept my face neutral. All right, he said. Your call. He walked out. Lacey waited until his office door shut. How did you do this for 11 years? She asked. He's usually nicer to you. That's not an answer. No, it's experience. She started gathering samples. I helped her put them back in their trays because sample organization was unquestionably within my role, and because refusing to touch a piece of fabric would have been insane. As we worked, she said, "What's wrong with the arch?" "The nightstands interrupt the curve. I can lower it, then it'll look squat." She stopped. "So you do have thoughts?" "Of course I have thoughts. You let me choose it anyway. That's what choosing is." "No, choosing is when somebody tells me enough that I don't look stupid. That's consulting." She pressed the blue paint chip into its plastic sleeve. "And that's extra?" "Yes." "Do sisters get a discount?" "Historically, 100%. She almost smiled. The Ashfords liked the blue. Their email arrived the next morning with 6 questions about implementation and a polite request to see how the idea carried into the first-floor common areas. Celia loved the link to the lobby windows. Martin wanted to know whether the arch could become a recurring motif without feeling themed. Dad printed the email and brought it to Lacey. "Well," he said, "you were right about the paint." Lacey looked suspicious. "Thank you. Now we need the lobby and lounge by Monday." The thank you had survived 4 words. Lacey read the email. They originally said next Friday. "They're excited. We don't punish enthusiasm." "I have the Reardon presentation Monday morning. Mara can cover it." From across the hall, I said, "No, she can't." Dad looked over. "It's a material review with design decisions. You picked half the materials." "Exactly." The front phone rang before he could answer. Our office coordinator, Tasha, called my name. "Naomi Ellis on line 2. Dad frowned. "What does Naomi need?" "I'll ask her." Naomi's kitchen had been one of our smaller projects, a modest remodel in a narrow 1950s house. Lacey had chosen a bold green backsplash that Naomi adored. I had changed the cabinet run after noticing Naomi came through the garage carrying a purse, mail, and usually a grocery bag in the same hand. We added a shallow landing shelf by the door. At the final walkthrough, Naomi hugged me over it. "Please tell me you still work there," she said when I answered. "I still work here." "Good." "Your father tried to sell me an addition." "That sounds like him." "He also tried to talk me out of buying a duplex, so I bought one." "Congratulations, thank you." "It's ugly." Naomi had a dry voice that made every sentence sound premeditated. "My sister Ruth is moving back from North Carolina," she continued. "We want separate living spaces close enough that one of us can check whether the other has fallen dramatically. That's practical. We prefer codependent with boundaries." I smiled. "What do you need from us?" "Not us. You." Dad was still standing in Lacey's doorway. I turned my chair toward the wall. "You want me to manage the project?" "I want you to look at the building before I buy a sledgehammer. I can schedule a consultation through the office." I tried. Glenn showed me 3 brochures and said he'd have Lacey pull some inspiration. I lowered my voice. "Lacey's good. I know. She gave me green tile. You gave me a place to put my purse." The line sat between us. Naomi cleared her throat. "I'm not asking you to sneak around. I'm asking whether you do private design work." I looked through the glass at my father, who was now pointing at something on Lacey's Ashford plan. "No," I said. "That was quick. I work full-time. So do most people who want to eat. I mean, there could be a conflict with the company that doesn't think you're a designer?" I didn't answer. Naomi softened. "Come see it. If you hate it, tell me. If you love it, we'll talk like adults." "Where is it?" "Clintonville. I'll text you the address." I should have refused. Instead, I said, "After 6. The duplex was a faded gray box with 2 front doors and a porch that sloped visibly to the left. Naomi stood on the sidewalk wearing red glasses and holding a ring of keys large enough for a prison guard. "Ugly," she said. "It has possibilities. That is designer for ugly." Inside, the left unit smelled like dust and old carpet. The rooms were chopped up, the kitchen was barely wide enough for two people to apologize past each other, and the bathroom door struck the sink before opening fully. Ruth arrived 10 minutes later carrying 3 sandwiches and a legal pad. She was taller than Naomi, with cropped silver hair and the same skeptical eyebrows. "I'm the widowed sister," she said, handing me a sandwich. "I'm sorry, don't be." I loved Dennis, but the man believed every horizontal surface was a shelf. Naomi pointed toward the ceiling. "She wants minimalism now. I want to see a table again before I die." We walked through both units. They wanted privacy, but not isolation. Ruth's knees made steep stairs difficult. Naomi wanted a guest room for adult friends and a kitchen where they could cook together without actually sharing a kitchen. They argued over whether an interior connecting door would be convenient or intrusive. "We need a signal," Ruth said. "Something that means come over and something that means I am alive but wearing no bra." "Porch light?" Naomi suggested. "Too visible." I found myself sketching as they talked. The wall between the dining rooms wasn't structural. A short shared passage could connect the units while preserving 2 lockable interior doors. Ruth's first-floor bedroom could borrow space from an unnecessary formal living room. If we shifted Naomi's kitchen opening, she could see the connecting passage without staring directly into it. Naomi watched my pencil. "You do that fast," she said. "It's rough. It's more than your father gave me. That isn't a fair comparison. He hadn't measured. Neither have you." I put the pencil down. Fear arrived late, after instinct had already made promises. I can't take this on without talking to Bennett daughters. "I'm not hiring Bennett daughters," Naomi said. "Then I may not be able to do it." "Why?" "Because Dad would call it poaching. Because Lacey would see it as retaliation. Because the company had consumed 11 years of my life without ever formally claiming my design work, and somehow I still felt I needed permission to prove it existed." "I need to think," I said. Ruth folded the sketch and handed it back to me. "Take this with you then. It looks hungry." At home, I set the duplex sketch on my drafting table. I intended to leave it there. At midnight, I was still drawing. By 1, I had drawn the connecting passage 3 different ways. By 2, I had moved Ruth's bathroom, widened 4 doorways, and found space for a laundry closet in each unit. At 2:15, I realized I was using the back of an Ashford vendor price list. I stared at the logo in the corner like it had caught me trespassing. The paper had been in my bag because Dad printed everything, including emails that said, "Thank you." It contained no private information, just lamp prices anyone could request, but I tore the sketch off the sheet anyway and redrew it on clean tracing paper. At 3, I went to bed. At 6:30, I got up and looked at it again. The design was imperfect. The connecting passage needed better light. The kitchen still felt unrelated, and I hadn't solved the porch. But the 2 homes made sense together. They weren't mirror images. Naomi's side was open and social. Ruth's had quieter rooms and shorter routes between them. The shared space didn't force closeness. It made closeness available. I rolled the drawings before I could improve them further and shoved them behind the drafting table. At work, Dad had responded to my task list. "See me." His office door was open. He was sitting behind a desk he'd built from 2 filing cabinets and a butcher block countertop 20 years earlier. One drawer stuck every humid summer, and every humid summer he complained about it instead of fixing it. He gestured toward the chair. I sat. He placed my task list between us. His reading glasses rested low on his nose, making him look gentler than he was feeling. "You spent a lot of time on this." "Yes. Some of these things are impossible to separate." "Which ones?" "Construction troubleshooting, material substitutions, expectation management." He tapped the last phrase. "This is all project management. Sometimes, most times. When Rick calls because a hood and range don't align, that's a design decision. It's also an installation problem, created by design." He removed his glasses. "You see what you want to see. What do you see? Someone who's hurt. That doesn't make the list inaccurate." No, but it makes it punitive. He opened his top drawer, pulled harder when it stuck, and took out a folded sheet of paper. "I'm prepared to increase your salary by 5%, he said. I looked at the page but didn't pick it up. "And change your title to Senior Operations Director." "Director of who?" "Operations. Tasha and me? We'll hire as we grow." "What would I direct now?" "That's cynical. It's a question. You always said you wanted your title to reflect your responsibility. I want my title to reflect my work. It does. Not the design work." His expression changed by a millimeter. "Here we go." I put it in writing. "And I'm trying to meet you halfway. Halfway between operations manager and designer is senior operations director. It recognizes your value without creating confusion. For whom? Clients, staff, your sister." There it was again. Clarity purchased with my disappearance. Does the raise require me to continue design development? It requires you to support projects as needed. Then it's 5% more for the same arrangement. The same arrangement that has given you stable employment for 11 years. I stood. Dad leaned back. "That wasn't an insult. You should put that on the offer." I left the page on his desk. Lacey's office looked as if the Ashford lobby had exploded inside it. Wallpaper books lay open on the floor. Her desk was covered in furniture cutouts. A tiny paper sofa clung to the sleeve of her sweater. "You have a couch on you," I said. She glanced down and peeled it off. "Story of my life." I kept walking. "Mara." I stopped in the doorway. She held up both hands. "Official question." "What makes it official? I'm not going to ask you to tell me what's wrong for free. That sounds promising. I need 2 hours of design review. I can pay you." "With what?" "My money." The same answer she'd given about the portfolio. This time, it didn't soften me. Would I be credited on the proposal? She looked toward Dad's office. "Then no." I didn't say no. "You looked at his door." I was thinking. "You looked at the answer." She pressed her lips together. "If I put consulting designer Mara Bennett on the plans, will you review them? Will Dad leave it there? I can't promise what he'll do. Then I can't do it." She dropped her hands. "Do you understand that Monday is 3 days away?" "Yes, I'm trying to ask correctly." "I know. And it's still no." "It's no because you can't offer the thing I'm asking for. I'm offering money. You've always thought payment was the hard part. What's the hard part? Letting somebody know you needed me." Her face flushed. "I told the Ashfords the portfolio was collaborative. After they'd already seen it? At dinner, I called Celia. That stopped me." "You called her?" I said an internal credit layer had been omitted from the file and that some of the technical and spatial development was yours. "What did she say?" "She said she'd assumed more than one person worked on the projects because the cover said Bennett Daughters." A laugh escaped me, short and ugly. "I know," Lacey said. "It wasn't heroic." "No, but I did it. Did Dad know?" "He does now." From his office came the sound of the sticking drawer being slammed shut. I leaned against the doorframe. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because every conversation we have feels like I walked into court without a lawyer. That's dramatic. I learned from the talented one." I looked at her. She winced. "Sorry." "No, you're not. I'm a little sorry." That was Lacey, capable of honesty in teaspoon measurements. I stepped into her office and looked at the plans from a distance. The blue arch had become a repeating curve in the lobby carpet, the reception desk, and the backs of lounge chairs. It was cohesive. It was also everywhere. "You've got a lot of arches," I said. "That sounds like a free opinion. It's an observation. What's the difference?" "About 2 hours." She threw the paper sofa at me. It drifted to the floor halfway between us. At lunch, I told Dad about Naomi. I could have kept it private until I decided. Instead, I stood in his doorway with my sandwich in one hand and said, "Naomi Ellis asked me to look at a duplex outside the company." He stopped chewing. "Why?" "Because she doesn't want to hire Bennett Daughters. She called us yesterday. She called me through the office because she didn't have my cell number. And you went to see the property? Yes, on company time? After 6. Did you use our drawings? No. Our vendors? No. Our contractor relationships? No. He put his sandwich down. Then what exactly are you asking me? I'm not asking. I'm telling you because I don't want it hidden. She's our client. She was our client. She found you through this company. She found me while this company was trying to give her project to Lacey. His eyes hardened. You're taking work from your sister now? Naomi asked for me. She asked because she knows you'll make it practical. That doesn't make you the designer. The sentence was so efficient it took a second to feel. I set my sandwich on the edge of his desk. That's what you think I did in her kitchen. You adjusted a cabinet run. I designed how she entered her house. You solved a problem. What do you think design is? Not this. He waved toward me. The office. Maybe the entire week. Not sneaking around with a former client because you're angry at your family. I came directly to you, after you went. I wanted to know what she needed before I brought you a theoretical conflict. You should decline. It wasn't a discussion in his voice. I waited. He picked up his sandwich again. Anything else? No. I went back to my desk and texted Naomi. I can take the duplex project independently if you still want me. I won't use Bennett Daughter's time, files, vendors, or staff. Before we proceed, I need to prepare a scope and fee. Her reply came 30 seconds later. That was almost a professional message. I'm proud of you. Then, do not charge me friendship prices. We are not friends yet. Mom called that afternoon to invite us to Sunday lunch. I thought we could have something simple, she said. Mom's simple lunches involved at least one dish that required overnight refrigeration. I'm busy. Doing what things? Will those things be heard if you eat chicken? I don't know. They're sensitive things. She was quiet, then said, Your father told me about Naomi. Of course he did. He feels betrayed. He feels disobeyed. You make him sound like a tyrant. I'm describing his feelings, not his government. Mara, I'll come to lunch. Thank you. But I'm not discussing the duplex. Of course not. She called Lacey before hanging up. I knew because my sister texted me less than a minute later. Mom says we're not discussing the duplex Sunday, which means she bought a dessert specifically for discussing the duplex. She had. Coconut cake. Dad waited until the chicken had been passed before saying, Your sister has decided to become our competition. Mom put down the serving fork. Glenn. What? We're all thinking it. I was thinking the potatoes need salt, Lacey said. Dad ignored her. Naomi Ellis was a company client. 4 years ago, I said, relationships matter. Apparently only when they can be invoiced. Mom said my name in a warning tone. Lacey took another potato. Naomi was always Mara's client. Dad turned to her. That's convenient. It's true. She called Mara about everything. She called the office and asked for Mara. She asked for results. Lacey chewed, swallowed, and looked directly at him. Then maybe Mara gets results. Dad stared at her as if the table had spoken. Mom stood. I'm getting the cake. We haven't finished lunch, I said. The cake is ready. The cake had been ready since we arrived. It sat under a glass dome on the counter, white and accusatory. Dad pushed back from the table. I've spent my life building something for both of you. Lacey looked down. I said, You built something around both of us. That isn't the same. His chair legs scraped the floor. Mom froze with the cake knife in her hand. Dad left the room without another word. The back door slammed. Nobody moved until Mom said, Well, that was cruel. I didn't know whether she meant him or me. She cut the cake into perfect wedges. Lacey ate hers too fast. Mom talked about the doctor's office, the weather, and a neighbor's new mailbox. I listened and nodded while my father's empty chair sat between us like another person. After lunch, I found Lacey on the front porch. She was sitting on the step, holding her shoes in one hand. Your arches are too repetitive, I said. She looked up. The Ashford lobby, I added. Use the curve once where it matters. Let the rest support it. That sounds expensive. It is. She smiled, but only for a second. Are you leaving? I'm standing right here. You know what I mean. Through the front window, Mom was wrapping coconut cake for each of us. In the backyard, Dad opened and closed the shed doors with more force than necessary. I don't know, I said. Lacey looked at the shoes in her hand. If you do, everything changes. Yes, that isn't me asking you to stay, I know. It was the first time either of us had said it without making it a threat. Lacey slid her shoes back on without standing. Do you want to leave? She asked. The question was quieter than the one before it. I want to know who I am when I'm not fixing something for all of you. You're still the person who alphabetizes spices. I organize by use. You have a category called occasional cinnamon. It's seasonal. She smiled, then looked toward the front window. Mom had stopped wrapping cake and was watching us through the glass. When she saw me notice, she lifted a foil-covered plate as if that explained everything. Lacey said, I don't know if I can do the hotel without you. That isn't a reason for me to stay. I know. Do you? She rubbed the heel of one shoe against the porch step. I'm starting to. Mom opened the front door and handed us our cake. Neither of us mentioned that Lacey had entered through the door without knocking while I'd been sitting outside like a guest. The Ashford presentation went out Monday afternoon. Lacey used the blue arch once, behind the reception desk, then pulled the color through the room in smaller pieces. Piping on the lounge chairs, a border in the rug, blue-gray tile at the bar. She placed a copy of the presentation on my desk. I'm not asking for a review, she said. I'm showing you what your one expensive observation did. I flipped to the lobby rendering. It's better. I know. That sounded confident. I practiced in the bathroom. The last slide listed the project team. Glenn Bennett, principal. Lacey Bennett, lead designer. Mara Bennett. Operational planning. I read it twice. You didn't do operational planning on this, I said. I know, but Dad said your name needed a reason to be there. Then it shouldn't be there. Her shoulders dropped. I thought you wanted credit. For work, I did. You told me about the arches. That was a conversation on Mom's porch. That changed the entire room. So write, porch consultant. I'm trying, Mara. I know, but putting my name somewhere inaccurate doesn't repair taking it off where it belonged. She took the presentation back. What do I put? Nothing. That feels worse. Accuracy sometimes does. She removed my name before sending it. I could tell she wanted me to thank her for that too. The Ashfords responded Tuesday morning. They liked the lobby direction and asked to meet the following week to discuss how the public spaces would connect to the guest experience. They also wanted a preliminary budget and schedule. The last two items came to me. I prepared them, put my name on both, and copied everyone. Dad appeared at my desk 10 minutes later. You didn't need to copy the Ashfords. They asked for the budget and schedule. They asked the firm. I sent it from the firm, with your name in the subject line. The subject line said, Ashford Preliminary Budget and Schedule, prepared by Mara Bennett. Yes, I said. It looks territorial. It tells them who to contact with questions. They should contact Lacey. Then Lacey will ask me. His mouth tightened. Tasha rolled her chair away from the reception desk with such concentration that I knew she was listening. Dad leaned closer. You are making ordinary business feel like a custody arrangement. No custody plots, I said. Just attribution. He stared at me, unsure whether I'd made a joke. So was I. I offered you a raise, he said. You offered me 5% to stop talking. I offered recognition. You offered adjectives. His phone rang. He looked at the screen, muttered something, and walked away. Tasha rolled back into view. What? I asked. Nothing. You're facing my office. I'm getting toner. The toner is behind you. She rotated slowly in the other direction. This is why I don't work with my family. You work with mine. Exactly. That evening, I met Naomi and Ruth at the duplex with a fee proposal and a man named Eli Navarro. Naomi introduced him as the contractor who prevented my roof from becoming part of my dining room. Eli was in his mid-40s, compact and calm, with a pencil tucked behind one ear and another clipped to his shirt pocket. Backup pencil? I asked. I don't trust the one behind my ear. Then why keep it? It makes people think I came prepared. He unfolded my preliminary plan on the kitchen counter. I'd priced my work too low. I knew because Naomi looked at the fee, then at me, and said, "No, you haven't seen the scope. I saw the number. It's based on estimated hours." Whose hours? A very efficient raccoon? Ruth adjusted her glasses. Naomi spent 3 weeks researching design fees. 2 weeks. You sent me spreadsheets. I care through data. I had researched fees too, but every number had looked indecent attached to my own name. At Bennett Daughters, design fees disappeared into broader project pricing. Dad called that simpler for clients. It was also simpler for ignoring who earned them. Eli tapped the plan. Before anybody negotiates, what am I building? I walked them through the connecting passage, the shifted kitchens, Ruth's bedroom, and the widened doors. Eli asked practical questions without trying to catch me. Where would the plumbing move? Had I checked the bearing direction? Was the porch foundation sound enough to extend? I don't know yet, I said 3 times. Each admission made my neck hotter. He didn't seem alarmed. He wrote the questions down. At the shared passage, he said, "You'll need a fire-rated assembly between units. 2 doors may get complicated. I was trying to preserve separate residences. You can, just don't draw the opening like a regular hallway. I didn't know that. That's why contractors are charming and necessary." Naomi said, "You've met Glenn." Eli's mouth twitched. I said charming. He sketched a small vestibule that could meet the separation requirements without making the connection feel institutional. I adjusted the sightlines so neither unit looked directly into the other. "That works," he said. 2 ordinary words. Dad had said good work before. Usually after I solved something, he had already promised. Lacey praised me loudly when she was relieved. Mom called me dependable like she was blessing a household appliance. Eli's approval had no family history inside it. It felt suspiciously clean. We spent an hour measuring. When I packed up, Naomi handed my proposal back with my fee crossed out and a higher number written beside it. "I'm the one who's supposed to quote you," I said. "You quoted nonsense. I can't just accept a number you invented. You can negotiate." Ruth leaned toward me. She enjoys this. Make it last. We settled in the middle. Naomi signed, then handed me a check for the first payment. The name line read, Mara Bennett. Nothing else. No daughters, no company, no explanation of whose vision I had translated or whose problem I had solved. My name looked almost unfinished alone. "Don't frame it," Naomi said. "Deposit it." At home, I created a separate email address, a separate cloud folder, and a spreadsheet for expenses. I ordered my own measuring laser because the one in my bag belonged to Bennett Daughters. Then I discovered independent design required at least 12 passwords and a personal relationship with printer ink. At 11, Lacey texted, "Do you remember why we rejected the round lounge tables for the Millers?" I stared at the message. She followed it with, "Historical question. Not asking you to solve anything." I wrote, "Wheelchairs couldn't turn between them at the proposed spacing." We switched to smaller square tops and offset the bases. 3 dots appeared. "Thank you." Then, "Does answering that violate the sanctions?" I replied, "The sanctions committee will review." She sent a courthouse emoji and nothing else. The next morning, Dad called a staff meeting. There were 6 of us in the conference room. Dad, Lacey, me, Tasha, Rick, and Donna, our part-time bookkeeper. Dad stood beside the whiteboard with my task list printed in his hand. "I want to clarify roles," he said. Lacey looked at me. I kept my face still. He began with dad language, which meant enough praise to make the next sentence difficult to challenge. He said the company was growing. He said each of us brought unique strengths. He said recent confusion had made it necessary to create cleaner internal processes. Then he assigned Lacey authority over concepts, client presentations, and aesthetic decisions. He assigned me authority over schedules, budgets, purchasing, and installations. Design development will remain collaborative, he said. "What does that mean?" Rick asked. Dad glanced at him. It means we work together. Rick nodded thoughtfully. That clears it up. Tasha coughed into her hand. I said, "Who is responsible for technical drawings?" Dad looked at the paper. The project lead. Who is responsible for correcting a concept that can't be built? The project lead, with input from operations. What kind of input? Mara, he said. I'm asking because Rick needs to know who to call. Rick raised his coffee. I would love to know who to call. Dad placed the task list on the table. If a problem affects construction, call Mara. If it affects appearance, call Lacey. What if it affects both? Tasha asked. Everyone looked at her. She held up both palms. Clients call me first. I live at the intersection. Dad's nostrils flared. Use judgment. The meeting ended with roles less clear than they had been before, but now printed on paper. As we stood, Dad said, Mara, stay. Lacey hesitated by the door. It's fine, I said. She left, though she didn't close the door all the way. Dad waited until the others were gone. Are you using company health insurance for your private business? I blinked. I'm using the health insurance I receive as an employee. You understand why that's a gray area? No. You're benefiting from this company while competing with it. One former client asked me for one project you didn't have. A project she would have given us if you hadn't encouraged her. She told you no before she asked me. You don't know what I could have worked out. Did you want the duplex? That isn't the point. It's exactly the point. He walked to the conference room window. Outside, Rick loaded cabinet boxes into the company van. Dad watched him for a moment. When I named this place Bennett Daughters, people told me I was sentimental, he said. They said neither of you would want it. I waited. I knew you would. The words should have sounded like faith. They didn't. You knew I would what? Stay. There it was, finally. Not lead. Not design. Not inherit anything worth naming. Stay. I did, I said. Dad turned. For an instant, he looked older than he had the day before. Then he said, and now you're blowing up the company over a portfolio. I picked up my notebook. No, I said. The portfolio just showed me the company you built. I left before he could tell me which parts I was supposed to be grateful for. That afternoon, the Ashfords requested a revised guest room plan. The blue arch worked beautifully in the rendering, but the bed placement left no convenient route for luggage, and the desk chair blocked the closet when pulled out. Lacey read the email twice. Dad brought the plan to my desk. Operational issue, he said. I looked at the room. It was. It was also the natural consequence of designing a photograph instead of a stay. Send me the actual field measurements, I said. I'll mark the required clearances. And fix the layout? No. He set both hands on my desk. You cannot separate those things. I know. For the first time, I think he did too. I marked the 36-inch circulation route, the turning clearance near the entry, and the space the desk chair needed when occupied. I added dimensions around the luggage bench and closet door, then sent the plan to Lacey. No furniture moved. 10 minutes later, she stood in my doorway. You've made the problem glow in yellow, she said. That was the assignment. It looks diseased. Yellow is our operational color. You invented that. Operations has authority over color now. She came in and laid the plan on my desk. If I rotate the desk to the window wall, it competes with the bench. Yes, if I shorten the bench, luggage ends up on the floor. Probably. If I move the bed, Lacey. I'm narrating, not asking. She turned the paper sideways, which did not improve the room but made the problem look less familiar. I designed the entire thing around that arch, she said. I know. If I shift the bed, it's not centered. Centered on what? The arch. What is the arch centered on? She stopped. I could see the moment she looked past the rendering and into the actual room. The wall wasn't symmetrical. The entry door cut into one side, and the window sat closer to the opposite corner. She had centered the arch on the image crop, not the architecture. Oh, she said. She moved the bed 8 inches, extended one side of the painted arch, and created a narrow, open shelf where the headboard no longer met the wall evenly. The asymmetry looked intentional. More important, a suitcase could pass between the desk and bed without shaving off a knuckle. She stared at it. "That's better," I said. "You helped." I asked what the arch was centered on. That was a suspiciously useful question. "Send me an invoice." She rolled her eyes, but she smiled. Dad hated the asymmetry until the Ashfords said they loved it. Then he called it a more confident evolution of the original idea. Lacey corrected him in front of Tasha. It was Mara's question that got me there. Dad looked at me. "I asked what the arch was centered on," I said. "That's it?" Tasha asked. "That's it." Tasha nodded solemnly. Powerful consulting. Dad did not laugh. The next complication came from my own project. Eli called while I was leaving work and asked if I could stop at the duplex. His tone was calm, which I was learning meant he had found something expensive. The carpet had been pulled up in Ruth's future bedroom. Beneath it, a dark diagonal crack ran across the slab. Naomi stood over it with her hands on her hips. "Can we call it character?" "No," Eli said. "Patina? No. An original feature? You can call it anything you want while I call an engineer." I crouched beside the crack. Is the foundation moving? Maybe. Could be old settlement. Could be active. There's also moisture along the exterior wall. My plan used that wall for built-in storage. If it needed repair or drainage work, Naomi's budget would tighten. Ruth's first-floor bathroom might have to shrink, or the shared passage would have to wait. I felt the failure immediately, fully, and personally. I should have seen this. Eli crouched across from me. Through carpet? The floor dipped. The whole building dips. I should have checked. "With what? Your emotional sensitivity," Naomi said. "Hers is overdeveloped." I stood and walked the room again, looking for every clue I had missed. A faint line in the drywall, discoloration behind the baseboard, a window that resisted opening. Eli watched me accelerate. "Mara," he said. "What?" "We investigate, price it, and adjust." I told them the layout was viable. The layout is viable. The building is old. I should have included a larger contingency. Yes. His agreement irritated me. You could pretend to think about it. I did, before I said yes. Naomi put a hand on my arm. "I hired you to solve the problems we find, not to have predicted the entire past of a house." "That should be on a pillow," Ruth said from the doorway. "I don't embroider for free. The engineer couldn't come until Friday. Eli suggested we continue selective demolition elsewhere and pause work in that room." I revised the schedule on my phone while we stood there. Nobody yelled. Nobody accused me of endangering the company. Nobody reminded me how many years they had invested in me. It was deeply unnerving. Outside, Eli walked me to my car. "You work for Glenn Bennett, right?" he asked. "With him? Same Glenn Bennett who tried to tell me maple and birch price the same if the stain is dark? That sounds like Dad. He's good at closing." "Yes." "You're good at the part after." I unlocked my car. That sounded almost like a compliment. It was a warning. About what? You think if you plan enough, you can keep everyone from being disappointed. That sounds efficient. It sounds exhausting. He tapped the roof of my car twice and walked back toward the duplex. My phone showed 3 missed calls from Mom. I called her before driving. "Your father hurt his wrist," she said. My first feeling was fear. My second was anger that fear had arrived before I could stop it. What happened? He was moving cabinet boxes. Why was he moving cabinet boxes? Rick told him not to. That has never made Dad want to do anything less. He says it's fine, but it's swollen. Take him to urgent care. He won't go for me, of course. Put him on. There was muffled conversation, then Dad's voice. "It's nothing. Can you grip?" "Yes." "Grip what?" "Your mother's patience." From farther away, Mom said, "That left years ago." I closed my eyes. "Is there bruising?" I asked. "A little." "Can you rotate it?" "I don't need a phone examination." "Then get a real one." I have a lot to do. So does everyone at urgent care. He exhaled. Your mother worries. You couldn't close your desk drawer yesterday. That drawer sticks. You used your left hand. Silence. Dad was right-handed. The pain I'd been noticing in his left wrist had been there longer than the cabinet box incident. I'll go in the morning, he said. Tonight. Mara. Mom called because she knew you'd listen to me. I am not listening to you. Then prove it from a medical facility. Mom made a sound that might have been a laugh. They went. Nothing was broken. Dad had aggravated arthritis and a tendon that needed rest, which he treated as a personal attack from his own body. Mom texted me from the exam room. He says thank you but won't say it himself. I wrote back. Then he didn't say thank you, she sent a heart. I didn't know what to do with it. When I got home, Lacey was sitting on the floor outside my condo with a paper bag beside her. You can't keep using my key, I said. You took my key. Growth. I knocked. You weren't here. Then traditionally, people leave. She stood and held up the bag. I brought soup. What do you need? Can I bring soup without needing something? No, that's fair. Inside, she put 2 containers on the island. Tomato basil from the place near our office. No fish sauce. No laptop. I waited. She took off her coat and saw the duplex drawing spread across the drafting table. Is that Naomi's? Yes. Can I look? The question itself surprised me. From there. She stayed on the other side of the table and leaned over the plans without touching them. I had revised the connecting passage, added alternate bathroom layouts, and sketched built-ins for Naomi's kitchen. Lacey followed the sightlines with one finger held above the paper. This is good, she said. My body rejected the compliment before my mind could consider it. It's preliminary. It can be preliminary and good. The foundation might be moving. That's less good. She studied Ruth's unit. The bedroom entrance is really quiet. Ruth doesn't want to see her front door from bed. That makes sense. She didn't say it directly. She kept asking whether the bedroom would feel exposed. Lacey looked up. You heard what she meant. So do you. Yes, but everybody thinks that's talent when I do it. There was no self-pity in her voice. That made it harder to dismiss. She walked to the island and opened the soup. Dad called the Ashfords today. I thought the revised room was approved. It is. They want us at the hotel next Thursday to walk the common areas and talk through operations. Us meaning Dad and me. I took 2 bowls from the cabinet. He also wants to show them furniture layouts for the lounge and breakfast room, she said. You already did the lounge. I did a rendering. I didn't account for breakfast service. Then account for it. I am. I poured soup into the bowls. What do you need? Nothing. Lacey. She took a spoon from the drawer, then put it back because it was a teaspoon, and she hated eating soup with teaspoons. Dad wants you to fix the layouts before the walkthrough, she said. No, I know. Do you? I told him you'd say no. And? He said I should stop protecting you. I laughed. That's new. He thinks this whole boundary thing is me encouraging you. This boundary thing, I was quoting him. You sounded comfortable. She sat at the island. I'm tired, Mara. So am I. I know you're waiting for me to understand what it felt like. I understand. It's been 9 days. They've been educational. I sat across from her. She stirred the soup without eating it. I keep making decisions and hearing both of you in my head. Dad says, sell the room. You say, make the room work. If I listen to him, I'm using you. If I listen to you, I'm not talented. I don't know what my own voice sounds like anymore. That isn't something I can solve. I know. We ate in silence for a minute. Then she said, do you remember when I got the Franklin project? The fireplace? She nodded. Dad gave it to me the week after you brought him your first full house concept. My spoon stopped. What full house concept? The Maple Street remodel, the couple with the piano. I remembered the drawings. I had spent weeks on them after work, then showed Dad because I wanted to move into design. He said the layouts were competent but cold. The clients eventually hired another firm. I didn't know you knew about that. I heard you arguing in his office. The next day, he called me in and said I was ready for a project of my own. The soup cooled between us. Why are you telling me now? Because I thought he was choosing me. He was. No. She looked toward the duplex drawings. I think he was putting us back where he wanted us. That explanation hurt more than favoritism. Favoritism at least suggested Lacey had won something. You still took the project, I said. Yes. And everyone after it. Yes. I wanted her to defend herself. I wanted to knock down the defense and feel clean for 5 minutes. She didn't give me one. When she left, she took the empty containers and knocked on the inside of my door before opening it. Practicing, she said. The engineer's report on Friday was better than expected. The crack was old settlement, not active movement. We needed drainage work and a foundation repair, but Ruth's bedroom could remain where I'd planned it. I adjusted the budget. Naomi complained about the cost, Eli defended it, and Ruth asked whether she could trade the guest room built-ins for a better shower. We made choices, ordinary, imperfect choices. At Bennett Daughters, the Ashford walk-through grew larger. Celia wanted the hotel manager there. Martin wanted food service questions addressed. Dad wanted revised plans mounted on boards by Wednesday. On Tuesday afternoon, he placed the walk-through agenda on my desk. Thursday, 10 o'clock, he said. I have it on the schedule. You're coming. As operations manager? He glanced toward Lacey's office, then lowered his voice. Lacey will lead. You'll be there to keep the conversation grounded. Will they know I designed parts of the work in the portfolio? This is not the time to reopen that. Then I'm not coming. His jaw tightened. I am telling you what the company needs, and I'm telling you what it costs. I offered you more money. I asked for a design title and project credit. You want me to undermine your sister in front of the biggest prospective client we've ever had? No. I want you to stop using me to make sure she never fails. His face went still. From across the hall, Lacey said, She's right. Dad turned toward her. She stood in her doorway holding the lounge plans. If Mara's in the room, she said, they know why. Dad looked from Lacey to me. This is a business decision, he said. Yes, Lacey replied, about the project I'm leading. You're leading the creative presentation. I'm responsible for the client relationship. And Mara is responsible for what? Keeping us from promising something we can't deliver. Then put that on the agenda. It is on the agenda. No, it says operations. Because that's her title. Lacey lifted the lounge plans. That's the problem. Dad's face changed. Not anger yet. Something more wounded and incredulous, as if a chair he had built had refused to hold him. I'd like both of you in the conference room, he said. His door remained open during the meeting. That was deliberate. Closed doors meant conflict. Open doors meant reasonable management, even when Tasha turned on the small radio at reception to give us privacy. Dad sat at the head of the table. Lacey and I took opposite sides. The Ashfords do not care about our internal title discussion, he began. They cared enough to ask who worked on the portfolio, Lacey said. They asked because you raised it. I raised it because it was true. Dad pressed his thumb into his left wrist. He wasn't wearing the brace the urgent care doctor had given him. Put that on, I said. He looked at his hand, then at me. Excuse me? Your brace. This is not about my wrist. You're hurting yourself to prove a point nobody's arguing. His mouth tightened. He pulled the brace from his back pocket and dropped it on the table without putting it on. Lacey reached for it and slid it closer to him. We have spent 2 weeks proving we can't separate design from operations, Dad said. The hotel needs someone who understands how rooms function. Mara understands that. Lacey understands the visual experience. This is why the company works. This is why the company works for you, I said. It works for all of us. Then why is only one part called talent? He sat back. Lacey looked down at the plans. Dad said, I have offered you a new title and more money, a title that hides the same work. You want to be called a designer? Fine. Senior Operations and Design Manager. The speed of it almost made me laugh. What projects would I lead? We can work that out. Which current projects list me as designer? Mara. Would the Ashford agenda list me as a designer? The client does not need a family employment negotiation inserted into a walkthrough. So no, you are obsessed with a word. I'm obsessed with what the word allows you to take. Dad stood and walked to the window. Rick was outside again, loading tools. Dad watched him as if a van full of cabinet clamps offered a simpler family. Without turning, he said, 5%. New title. You attend Thursday, support your sister, and we have a full conversation after the proposal is approved. After Mom recovered. After the busy season. After Lacey's client meeting. After the Ashford proposal. My life had been waiting in that word for 11 years. No, I said. He turned. Then what do you want me to do? Hand you half the presentation with 48 hours notice? I want you to stop asking me to do design work you refuse to name. I just gave you the title. You improvised it 30 seconds ago because you demanded it. I asked for a real role, not an emergency label. He looked at Lacey. Do you see what she's doing? She met his gaze. Yes. Finally. She's making you say it. The silence after that was so complete I could hear the radio at reception playing an ad for replacement windows. Dad picked up the wrist brace and fastened it with abrupt, angry movements. All right, he said. Mara won't attend. Lacey's lips parted. Dad continued. You wanted to lead. Lead. It sounded exactly as it had during the concept review. Permission shaped like a trap. I will, she said. Good. He left the conference room. Lacey kept looking at the empty chair. Don't ask me to change my mind, I said. I wasn't going to. You were thinking loudly. I was wondering if I can change mine. About the walkthrough? About all of it. I gathered my notebook. That's not the same decision, I know. Wednesday became a long exercise in watching consequences approach at regular speed. Lacey revised the lounge. She created a breakfast setup near the windows, added flexible seating, and designed a curved service counter that echoed the reception arch without copying it. The room looked beautiful. The hotel staff would have to roll food from the back kitchen through the main seating area to reach the counter. That was the kind of problem I used to catch before anyone else saw the plan. Now the route sat there in a light gray line, crossing between tables. Lacey knew I'd seen it. She didn't ask. At lunch, she met with the food service consultant the Ashfords had recommended and came back carrying a legal pad full of notes. She shifted the counter closer to the kitchen, losing the window view she loved. Then the queue blocked the entrance. She changed the entrance. That narrowed the passage to the restrooms. At 4, she threw a roll of tracing paper against the wall. It bounced and landed upright in her trash can. Tasha applauded from reception. Lacey stared at the trash can. That's the best thing I've done all day. Dad came out of his office. Where are we? Thriving, Lacey said. He reviewed the latest layout and immediately pointed to the service path. You can't run breakfast through the lounge. I know. Then why is it drawn that way? Because the other option blocks the entrance. He looked across the hall at me. I turned back to the Bowman installation schedule. Mara, he said, I'm not on the Ashford design team. You are on the operational team. Then my operational feedback is that the service route crosses guest seating. We know that. Good meeting. Dad came into my office and shut the door behind him. You're enjoying making your point. No. Then help her. I marked the guest room clearances. I prepared the budget and schedule. I answered the operational questions. You know how to solve this. I know how to begin solving it. So does Lacey. She has a presentation tomorrow. So did I once. He frowned. Maple Street, I said. The piano. Recognition arrived slowly. That project was years ago. You said my plan was cold. The next day, you gave Lacey the Franklin project. His eyes shifted toward the closed door. Did you do that because she was ready, I asked, or because I was getting too close to leaving operations? That's absurd, is it? I don't remember the timing. Lacey does. His face hardened at her name. Your sister has spent 10 days turning against me because you are unhappy. No, she's spent 10 days working for you." He leaned over my desk. "If this meeting goes badly, that hotel project goes away. Do you understand what that means? It affects Rick's schedule, Tasha's hours, Donna's work. It affects your mother and me. It affects the company with your name on it. My name is on the building, Dad. That is never guaranteed it would be anywhere else." He straightened. "You're willing to let everyone pay for your pride." There it was, the oldest family trick. Expand the circle of possible harm until my boundary looked like an attack on innocent people. I thought of Naomi's cracked slab. Nobody there had asked me to pretend it wasn't cracked, so the room would feel nicer. "You're the one sending Lacey into that meeting with a role you never let her learn," I said. "You've spent years calling her gifted so you didn't have to teach her anything, and calling me dependable so you didn't have to credit me." Dad stared at me. Then he opened the door. "I hope this is worth it," he said. After he left, I locked myself in the restroom and held my hands under cold water until they stopped shaking. At 6, Lacey was still working. I stood in her doorway with my coat on. "I'm going to the duplex tomorrow morning," I said. "My phone will be off during the walkthrough." She nodded. "I'm not doing that to punish you." "I know. If there is an actual emergency, Tasha has Eli's number." "Okay." I waited for her to say more. She turned the lounge plan toward me. I moved the breakfast service into the former storage room. That reduces back-of-house space. "Yes." "Where does housekeeping stage?" "The basement." "Is there an elevator?" "There will be." "That affects the budget." "I know. The route worked. Not elegantly and not cheaply, but it worked." "You solved it," I said. "I made a new problem farther away. That's most design." She smiled without looking up. The next morning, Naomi's duplex was full of noise. Eli's crew opened the wall for the connecting vestibule while I stood with him in Ruth's future bedroom, reviewing the drainage repair. Dust floated in the sunbeams. Naomi had brought coffee for everyone and labeled mine Mara, designer in thick black marker. I turned the cup so the word faced the wall. Eli noticed. "Spelling wrong?" "No. Then why hide it? I'm avoiding a personality breakthrough before caffeine." He handed me the updated foundation estimate. It was higher than expected, but manageable if we simplified built-ins and delayed Naomi's upstairs bathroom. I called both sisters into the kitchen and explained the trade-offs. Ruth asked practical questions. Naomi complained theatrically about losing her bathroom tile, then admitted she cared more about the drainage. They made a decision. I documented it. No one looked over my shoulder for Dad's reaction. At 10, I turned off my phone. At 11:30, Eli and I stood inside the framed vestibule. The opening caught afternoon light from both units exactly as I'd hoped. "This part was smart," he said. "Only this part?" "Compliments are how scope creep starts." At noon, I turned my phone back on. There were 14 missed calls. 4 from Dad, 3 from Mom, 2 from Tasha, 5 from Lacey. My stomach dropped. The first voicemail was Dad telling me to call him immediately. The second was Mom asking what had happened at work. The third was Tasha, speaking quietly. "Don't come in hot, that's all I'm saying." Lacey's only voicemail lasted 6 seconds. "I told them," she said. "I told them everything." I called Lacey. She didn't answer. I called Tasha. "Are they still there?" I asked. "Everyone is still here." "Who is everyone?" "Your father, your sister, your mother, and the spirit of poor decision-making. Why is Mom there?" Glenn called her. Of course he had. Dad believed family problems should stay out of the office until he needed reinforcements. "What happened?" I asked. "I think you should hear it from Lacey. Is the contract gone?" "There was no contract yet." Tasha. "The Ashfords postponed the next step." My chest tightened. Postponed or canceled? Postponed is the word Celia used, and Dad, canceled is the word Glenn is using. I told Eli I had to go. He looked at my face and didn't ask whether it was a family emergency. "We're done opening walls today. Go." Naomi handed me my coffee, the word designer still facing outward. "Take the sandwich too," she said. "I'm not hungry. That has never stopped a sandwich from being useful. I drove to Bennett Daughters with it, unopened on the passenger seat. The conference room door was closed. Through the glass, I could see Dad standing by the window, Mom sitting at the table, and Lacey leaning against the wall beside the presentation boards. Her blue arch looked absurdly calm behind her. Tasha pointed at the radio. Should I turn it up? No, I have a loud station ready. I opened the door. Dad turned. There she is. Mom said, "Glenn, please." Lacey had been crying. Not the attractive, glossy kind she could blot away with a napkin. Her eyes were swollen and one side of her hair had fallen out of its clip. "What did you tell them?" I asked. Dad laughed once. "She told them we're liars. I didn't use that word," Lacey said. "You didn't need to." "Can one person answer me?" I asked. Mom stood. "Everyone is upset." "Sit down, Diane," Dad said. She looked at him. "Don't speak to me like that." It was such an unexpected rebellion that all three of us went quiet. Mom sat anyway, but she did it on her own schedule. Lacey folded her arms. "Celia asked why you weren't there." "Why?" "Because your name was on the budget and schedule, and because I called her about the portfolio credits. Dad said you had another project conflict." "I did. He said you'd reviewed everything internally." Dad cut in. Which was true. "You reviewed the room clearances." "That isn't everything," I said. I was keeping the conversation moving. Lacey continued. Then the hotel manager asked about breakfast service. I explained the storage room change, the basement staging, and the elevator cost. Martin wanted to know whether it had been included in the preliminary budget. "It wasn't," I said. "I know." Dad slapped his palm against the table. "That is why you should have been there." Lacey's voice rose. "She told you she wasn't coming. She prepared the budget. Before I moved breakfast service, then you should have told her. I did tell her. You showed her a plan the night before. And she told me it affected the budget." Dad opened his mouth. Lacey didn't let him speak. Celia asked whether Mara had worked on the concept. Dad said no. She asked whether Mara had worked on the projects in the portfolio. Dad said the whole firm had. "I gave an accurate answer," he said. "You gave an answer designed to make the question go away. So what did you say?" I asked. Lacey looked at me. "I said you designed the Franklin fireplace, the Kessler window plan, most of the Henderson kitchen, and the circulation changes on the hotel guest room." Dad pointed at her. "After I specifically told you the meeting was not the place for internal grievances. It wasn't a grievance, it was a list. Then you told them your own proposal wasn't ready. It wasn't. You stood in front of a prospective client and disqualified yourself. I said the public space concept needed more coordination before we could price it responsibly. We could have coordinated it. With Mara after the meeting? With the company." Lacey pushed away from the wall. "You keep saying company when you mean her." Mom whispered, "Lacey." "No, Mom." "He does." Dad looked at me. "Are you happy?" The question was so familiar that for a second I was back at the restaurant, expected to apologize because my face had interrupted the celebration. "No. You got exactly what you wanted." "What did I want?" "Your sister humiliated. Me undermined. The Ashfords questioning whether we can handle their project. I wasn't in the room. You didn't have to be." Lacey stepped between us, not dramatically, just enough to break his line of sight. She didn't tell me to do it. "You've repeated her arguments for 2 weeks. They're true. She has poisoned you against your own family." "No," Lacey said. "She stopped protecting me from my own job." Dad's face went red. Mom stood again. "We are not going to talk like this." "Then how should we talk?" I asked. "Not like strangers." "Strangers would be more polite," Lacey said. Mom flinched. Lacey saw it and immediately softened. "I'm sorry." That was the family reflex in its purest form. "Mom hurt," Lacey apologized. "Dad hurt," I fixed. The work moved toward the daughters no matter who had made the mess. Dad pulled out a chair and sat heavily. "The creative director discussion is over," he said. Lacey went still. Mom said, "Glenn, don't make decisions when you're angry." I'm not angry. I am correcting a mistake. He wouldn't look at Lacey. She swallowed. Okay. You're off the Ashford proposal. Okay. You'll finish current residential projects under my review. Okay. Each answer got smaller. I wanted her to fight him. I wanted Dad to take it back. I wanted several contradictory things so badly that they crowded out anything useful. Dad looked at me. "You can take over the hotel proposal." "No." His eyebrows lifted. "You wanted design credit." "Fine. Put your name on every board. That's not what I want. You've made it painfully clear that it is. I want credit for my work. I don't want Lacey's role as punishment. You said she wasn't ready. I said you never let her learn. Then teach her. Pay me and credit me. We are back to that? We never left." Dad shoved his chair away from the table. "I don't know who either of you think you are." The answer rose before I could soften it. "That's because you decided for us." Silence settled over the room. Outside the glass, Tasha turned the radio up. A cheerful voice began describing discounts on patio furniture. Dad looked at me for a long time. "What happens now?" he asked. It wasn't a threat. That was what made it frightening. I had imagined quitting in flashes for years. In every version, I was calm, prepared, and financially secure. I had a clean desk and an impressive opportunity waiting. Dad finally understood my value before I reached the parking lot. In reality, my health insurance came through Bennett Daughters. My condo had 6 years left on the mortgage. Naomi's duplex would not support me beyond a few months, and my only other guaranteed source of income was the company I was about to leave. "I'm giving 2 weeks' notice," I said. Mom made a small sound. Lacey turned toward me. "Mara." Dad didn't move. I kept going because stopping would have killed it. "I'll document active schedules, vendor contacts, installation issues, and pending change orders. I'll train whoever takes over. I won't begin new projects." "You don't have another job," Dad said. "No, that duplex is not a business." "I know. You're walking away from 11 years with nothing lined up." "Yes. Because I won't put designer on your email signature. Because you think that's what this is about." Mom came around the table. "Please take a breath. All of you. We can go home and talk tonight." "No," I said. Her eyes filled. "Why not?" "Because going home is how every company decision turns into a family favor." Dad stood. "If you want to leave, leave. I'm giving notice. I heard you. I'm not abandoning the staff or active clients. You think staying 2 weeks makes this noble? No, it makes it a handoff." He looked as if he wanted to say something cruel enough to match the injury. Instead, he removed his reading glasses, folded them, and placed them on the table. "Send me the list by end of day," he said. Then he walked into his office and shut the door. Mom stared after him. "This family was fine a month ago," she said. Lacey laughed, then covered her mouth with her hand. Mom looked wounded. "What? It wasn't fine. We had dinner. We saw each other. We performed maintenance," I said. "That's what families do. Not only that." She picked up her purse. "I can't do this right now." For once, neither of us stopped her. When she left, Lacey sank into a chair. "I didn't know you were going to quit." "I didn't know either. Did I make you?" "No, I made everything worse. You made it visible." That sounds like something people say when worse is too accurate. I sat across from her. "What exactly did the Ashfords say?" Lacey rubbed both hands over her face. "Celia thanked me for being honest. Martin asked if we could send a revised proposal with a clear project team and responsibilities. Dad said we needed to discuss internally. Celia suggested we pause until we had, so it isn't gone. Dad thinks it is. Dad thinks pause means disobedience." She looked toward his closed office door. "I wanted that job," she said. "Creative director." "I know. I still want it, just not like that." "I know." Her eyes filled again. "Do you hate me?" "No. Are you sure? I'm furious with you." That wasn't the question. "No," I said. "I don't hate you." She nodded as if I had handed her something fragile. I returned to my desk and began the handoff list. The company had depended on habits no one had ever written down. Rick preferred installation schedules by text before 7 in the morning, but needed formal copies emailed to his crew. The tile supplier would hold stock for 48 hours if you asked for Maribel. Dad forgot to approve payroll on holiday weeks. Lacey underestimated fabric lead times every February because she mentally skipped the Chinese New Year shutdown. I wrote until the list reached 9 pages. At 5:30, Dad's office remained closed. Tasha stood in my doorway with her coat on. "Are you really leaving?" "Yes. Should I panic now or in an organized fashion tomorrow?" "Tomorrow. I'll make a schedule." "Thank God." She hugged me before I could object. At home, I opened my banking app at the drafting table. The numbers did not become more encouraging when I refreshed them. I calculated insurance, mortgage, utilities, groceries, business software, taxes, and how long Naomi's project could stretch if every invoice arrived on time. 4 months? Maybe 5 if I stopped buying anything that couldn't be eaten or deducted. My phone rang. Dad's name appeared. I watched it until the screen went dark. A voicemail followed. I waited 10 minutes before listening. His voice was controlled. "Your mother is upset. Call her. Nothing about the company, nothing about my notice, nothing about whether I was all right." Then, just before the message ended, I heard him breathe in. "Mara," he said. A pause. He hung up. I listened to that last unfinished second 3 times, furious at myself for hearing love in it. I called Mom. She answered on the first ring. "Are you home?" she asked. "Yes." "Have you eaten?" "Yes." It was technically true. Naomi's sandwich had become dinner after sitting in my car for 6 hours. "Your father is very upset." "I know. He's pretending to watch television." "That sounds serious." "Mara, I don't know what you want me to say. I want you to understand what leaving does to him." I stood at my kitchen window. Across the alley, a woman in the next building watered a plant on her fire escape even though it was raining. I understand what staying did to me. Mom was quiet. Then she said, "I told him you would never leave." The honesty startled me. "Why?" "Because you don't." "Exactly. I meant it as a good thing." "I know. I counted on you too." She said it without defending herself. For once, dependable did not arrive dressed as a compliment. Mom continued, "When I needed the surgery, I knew you'd help. When your father worked late, I knew you'd handle dinner. When Lacey was falling apart, I knew you'd take her. I thought that meant we were close. We are close. Then why does it feel like I did something terrible? Because close isn't supposed to mean unlimited." The rain tapped harder against the glass. "What do I do now?" she asked. It was a real question, not a trap. I could hear how unfamiliar it felt in her mouth. "Let me leave the company without making me repair Dad first." "What about me? You can be upset." "That's all? That's a lot." She gave a small laugh that turned into a shaky breath. "You sound like a therapist. No therapist would answer the phone this late. It's 9:15. I have strict office hours now. We said goodnight without solving anything." Dad did not speak to me the next morning until 11:40. He came to my desk, placed a legal pad beside my keyboard, and said, "Pending vendor issues." There were 7 items on the page. "I've already included 5 of these in the handoff," I said. "I want the current status." "It's in the handoff. Show me." I opened the document and walked him through each line. He wrote notes in the margin as if he were hearing the information for the first time, though I had sent it to him the night before. When we finished, he said, "Tasha will take scheduling. I'll handle estimates. That's too much for Tasha without help. She says she can do it." Tasha appeared in my doorway. I said I can learn it. Dad looked at her. "There's a tonal difference," she added. "We'll hire someone," he said. "When?" I asked. "When we find the right person. Start now." He looked offended by the instruction. "I'm leaving in 9 business days," I said. "I know how calendars work. Do you?" Tasha backed away. "I'm getting toner." Dad ignored her. "Train Tasha," he said. "I'll handle the rest." He took his legal pad and left. At lunch, Rick sat on the corner of my desk eating pretzels from a vending machine bag. "You quitting because of the hood?" he asked. "The Bowman hood. 4 inches can break a person. It wasn't the hood. That's good. I'd feel responsible. You found the problem." "That's what I'm saying." He chewed for a moment. "You going somewhere better?" "I'm going somewhere undefined. That sounds expensive." "It is." He nodded as if I'd confirmed a material price. "You need an installer on that duplex. Eli's good. You know Eli?" "Everybody knows Eli. He stole my best tile guy. Did you ever forgive him?" "No, tell him I said hi." Before leaving, Rick handed me the pretzel bag. There were 3 left. It was the closest he came to sentiment. Lacey became precise around me. She stopped leaning in my doorway and asking broad questions. Instead, she sent emails. "Can you confirm whether the Reardon fabric order has been released? Do the Morans have final pricing for the lighting change? Where is the Bowman warranty information stored?" I answered each one. She did not ask about colors, layouts, or whether anything looked wrong. Watching her respect my boundary felt lonelier than watching her violate it. Dad prepared a revised team proposal for the Ashfords. He listed himself as principal and project director, Lacey as interior designer, and an outside architectural consultant we had used twice for permits. My name was gone, which was correct. The responsibilities were still vague. Lacey stood in his office holding the draft. "If I'm interior designer, say what I'm responsible for," she said. "You're responsible for interiors. Concept only, drawings, specifications, site coordination. We work as a team. The whole reason they paused is because they don't know who does what." Dad looked toward my office, then caught himself. "I'll revise it," he said. "You said that yesterday. I have other work." "Then let me revise it. You've done enough revising." She went pale but stayed. "If you send this," she said, "I'm not presenting it." Dad removed his glasses. "Are you quitting too?" "No." The answer came fast. Something in me tightened, though I had no right to want a matching sacrifice. Lacey continued, "I'm staying. I'm also not telling another client I can do work you haven't given me the training or support to do. You've handled projects for years. With Mara, you have other resources. Name one." "The architect. He reviews code. He doesn't develop interiors. We can hire a technical designer, then put that in the proposal." Dad stared at her. Finally, he picked up a pen. The revised proposal named an outside technical designer whose rate made Dad press so hard while writing that the pen tore the paper. The Ashfords thanked us and said they would consider it along with another firm's team. Dad called that an insult. Lacey called it procurement. Neither asked me to intervene. My last week filled with instructions. I taught Tasha the installation schedule, including the part where Rick claimed he hated text messages and then ignored every email. I created templates for change orders. I introduced Dad to the vendor portal he had been paying for since 2021. I labeled physical folders because he still trusted paper more than searchable databases. Donna reviewed payroll with him and emerged from his office looking 10 years older. "Your father thinks withholding taxes are a personal criticism," she said. "He feels that way about percentages." On my final Wednesday, Mom arrived with banana bread and no gourds. She placed a slice beside my keyboard, then removed it when she saw contracts there. "Are you packed?" she asked. "My office isn't a dorm room." "You have things." I did. 3 mugs, 2 sweaters, a lamp, a framed floor plan, and a drawer full of personal sketchbooks I had brought from home over the years. They were not company work, but I still went through every page to make sure I took nothing belonging to a client. Mom touched the frame on my wall. "Your father was proud when you drew that. He said the powder room was too small. He can be proud and critical. He usually lets critical do the talking." She nodded. That surprised me more than an argument would have. "I won't ask you to stay," she said. "Thank you. I want to." "I know." She kissed the top of my head and left the banana bread. Dad waited until 5:30 on my final day. Tasha had gone home after arranging an awkward conference room gathering with supermarket cupcakes. Rick shook my hand. Donna hugged me. Lacey stood beside me while everyone avoided saying good luck too enthusiastically in case Dad could hear. When the office emptied, he came to my doorway. My personal things were packed in 2 boxes. The framed plan leaned against one of them. "Do you have everything?" he asked. "I think so." "What about the Miller vendor records? Shared drive Miller procurement." "Tasha knows." "And the Bowman closeout?" "Rick sends the final photographs tomorrow. The warranty packet is ready." He nodded. Neither of us looked at the boxes. "I can extend the 5% to 10, he said. I closed the drawer I had been checking. "And the title?" "Director of Operations and Design Development. What projects would I lead? We can assign one after the Ashford decision. Will I be credited on work I develop?" "When appropriate." "What does appropriate mean?" His jaw tightened. "You know I can't put every employee's name in front of clients. I'm not every employee. That is the problem with you right now. You think no one else contributes? I think I contributed." "I know you did." "Then why is saying it so hard?" Dad looked at the framed floor plan. It was a measured drawing of the Bennett showroom, one I had made when we moved into the old dentist's house. Every uneven wall, blocked vent, and stubborn doorway was there. "You never needed praise," he said. It was the closest he had come to answering. "No," I said. "You needed me not to." I lifted the first box. He reached for it automatically, then winced when his wrist took the weight. "I have it. I can carry a box. I know." We stood there holding opposite sides. Then he let go. At the front door, he said, "If this doesn't work, call me, not come back, not 'I'm proud of you.'" Still, it was an opening shaped exactly like him. "I'll call Mom," I said. I regretted it before the door closed. My first morning without Bennett daughters, I woke at 5:45 in a panic because I had forgotten to release a cabinet order. It was not my cabinet order anymore. I lay there listening to the refrigerator hum until the relief became fear. At 8, I was at the duplex. The connecting vestibule had drywall. Ruth's bathroom tile was going in. Naomi's kitchen cabinets had arrived, and one was damaged. I photographed it, called the supplier, negotiated a replacement, and updated the schedule. At 10, Eli handed me coffee. "No label?" I asked. "I know who you are." He said it casually and walked away. The duplex became my workday instead of my second shift. That changed the project. I could stand in the space while light moved through it. I caught details I would have missed at night. The shared passage needed a warmer fixture. Naomi's landing shelf was too shallow for the way she dropped her keys beside her purse. Ruth's shower bench looked institutional until we continued the wall tile across it. I made mistakes. Eli found some. I found others. We argued about a pocket door for 20 minutes and discovered we were both wrong because a vent occupied the wall. Nobody called me talented. They called me when a decision belonged to me. Money remained frightening. Naomi referred me to a friend who needed a laundry room redesigned, and Ruth's former co-worker asked for a consultation on a cramped condo. Neither was glamorous. Both paid. I bought health insurance that cost more than my first car. Lacey came over on Wednesdays. The first time, she brought soup. The second, she brought nothing because I told her I was starting to associate food with emergencies. We ate at my drafting table and talked about Mom's hip, Dad's brace, a terrible date she'd gone on, and whether my smoky blue cabinets were actually depressing. She never brought work. The Ashfords chose the other firm, Lacey told me over coffee. Dad didn't speak for 2 hours, she said. Maybe check on him. He was making sounds, just not words. I'm sorry, me too. She meant the project, the role, and probably all the things neither of us could repair by naming. At the duplex, the final weeks became finishing work. Hardware, paint touch-ups. A porch light system Naomi and Ruth could use as a signal after all. Left light meant come over, right light meant call first, both off meant alive but unavailable. Eli stood with me in the completed shared passage while his crew packed tools. "We work well together," he said. "You still owe Rick a tile guy. He needs to let that go. He won't." Eli leaned against the doorframe. I've got 3 renovation inquiries and no interest in becoming a designer. You've got design inquiries and no interest in managing construction alone. I manage construction. You manage anxiety. Construction happens nearby. I looked at him. He smiled. That was almost a joke. What are you proposing? A small studio partnership. Separate books, shared projects, clear scopes. Nothing sentimental. The words clear scopes nearly seduced me on the spot. I need to think. Good. People who say yes immediately become expensive. Naomi planned a small open house for the following Sunday. Invite whoever needs to see it, she told me. I knew exactly who needed to see it. I did not know whether I wanted him there. I invited Mom first. She responded with 3 hearts, a cake emoji, and a question. Is your father invited? I typed yes, deleted it, typed no, deleted that too. Finally, I wrote, I'm inviting both of you. Whether he comes is his decision. Dad did not respond. Mom volunteered to bring something. I told her Naomi had hired a caterer. She replied, I can still bring banana bread. I told her she could bring 1 loaf. She brought 3. Before the open house, I met Eli at a coffee shop with his proposed partnership terms printed in a folder. Separate accounts, shared overhead only for shared projects. Design decisions belong to me. Construction means and methods belong to him. Client changes affecting both required both approvals. Either of us could take independent work without permission. You wrote a whole section about attribution, he said. Yes, I noticed. Problem? No. It's unusually specific. I've had an unusually specific month. He turned to the last page. You know, partnership means I'll disagree with you. I'm counting on it. I'll also tell clients when an idea is too expensive. I'm counting on that too. You say that now. What are you counting on? That you'll notice everything I miss and annoy me about it in writing. That's fair. He handed me a pen. I signed. There was no swelling music. A milk steamer screamed behind the counter, and a man at the next table sneezed directly into his hands. Eli checked my signature, nodded once, and went to order another coffee. I took a photograph of the signed page. Then I called Mom. I accepted a business partnership, I said. With whom? Eli Navarro. The contractor? Yes. Is he married? This is why I don't tell you things. I'm asking for context. The context is construction. She laughed. Are you happy? I'm terrified. That wasn't my question. I looked at my name on the agreement. Yes, I said. I think I am. Lacey asked me to coffee 2 days later. She arrived carrying a slim black portfolio case and set it on the empty chair beside her rather than the table. She talked about Mom's banana bread, Dad's refusal to wear his wrist brace, and a client who wanted a bathroom to feel more expensive but less money. We were halfway through our drinks when she touched the portfolio. I'm applying somewhere, she said. Where? A residential studio in Dayton. Senior designer, not creative director. That's a long commute. I could move. The thought of Lacey somewhere, Dad couldn't summon her into his office, felt both healthy and impossible. Does he know? No. Mom? No. Then why do I know? Because I need somebody to look at my portfolio. She lifted the case onto the table. I slid it back. Her hand stayed on the zipper. You haven't opened it. I know, I credited you. Good. I credited everyone. Rick is in there twice. He'll hate that. He can suffer. She pushed the portfolio toward me again. I'm not asking you to rebuild it, just look. No. Her face changed in the old sequence. Surprise, hurt, calculation. Then she stopped. I said, I can be your sister, or I can be your unpaid second pair of hands. You have to pick one. That's not fair. Sisters look at things. Sisters also spend an afternoon drinking coffee without turning it into labor. She looked down at the case. What if it's bad? She asked. Then it's yours. That is not comforting. It's honest. She traced one finger along the zipper. What if they don't think I'm talented? Then you'll survive knowing what the rest of us have always known. That sounded hostile. It was a little hostile. She smiled despite herself. Then she moved the portfolio back to the empty chair. "Sister," she said. "We ordered lunch. She told me about the studio, about how embarrassed she felt applying for a role below the one Dad had nearly given her, and about how relieved she felt that nobody there knew Glenn Bennett's opinion of her." I told her about the partnership with Eli. She asked smart questions about insurance and terrible questions about whether his backup pencil was emotionally significant. Before we left, she opened her email on her phone and submitted the application with the portfolio attached. "You didn't even check it again," I said. "If I open it, I'll call you from the parking lot. That would violate sanctions. The committee is ruthless." She sent it. On Sunday, I arrived at the duplex an hour early and found Naomi adjusting a vase on her new landing shelf. Her purse, keys, mail, and sunglasses were spread beside it, exactly as I had imagined. "The shelf works," I said. "It's too small." I stared at her. She smiled. "I wanted you to feel at home." Ruth came through the shared vestibule carrying a tray of glasses. The warm ceiling light was on, which meant come over. The door behind her remained open, while the door into Naomi's side was closed. They had already developed rules more specific than anything I'd drawn. "Naomi keeps turning on both porch lights," Ruth said. "Both off means unavailable," I reminded her. "She says darkness is unfriendly. I say darkness is private," Naomi called. "You see what you connected?" Ruth asked me. Eli arrived with flowers and handed them to Naomi. She inspected them. "Are these from a gas station?" "Florist next to a gas station. Acceptable." His crew had finished 3 days earlier, but he still walked every room checking corners and testing doors. "You're working," I said. "I'm socializing with hinges. You know people are arriving. I prefer hinges." Lacey came first, wearing a rust-colored dress that looked suspiciously like the textile from her rejected Ashford scheme. She stood in Naomi's kitchen and slowly turned in a circle. "This feels like you," she said. "What does that mean?" "Quiet until you notice how much is happening." That sounded rehearsed. I practiced in the bathroom. She followed the connecting passage into Ruth's side, pausing where the light from both units met. "You made separate feel close," she said. "That was the assignment." "No, the assignment was 2 kitchens and a less dangerous shower. This is the thing underneath." I looked at her. She shrugged. "I'm talented." Mom arrived carrying banana bread in a basket lined with a cloth napkin. I said 1 loaf. 1 is for Naomi, 1 is for Ruth, and 1 is for people. Naomi and Ruth are people. Hosts don't count. She hugged me, then walked through the rooms with both hands clasped around the empty basket. In Ruth's bathroom, she sat on the built-in bench and ran her fingers over the tile. "This would have been nice after my surgery," she said. "It would." She looked up at me. "You would have thought of that. I did think of it. You and Dad didn't want to renovate. We thought it was temporary." "So did I." Mom lowered her eyes. "I should have asked whether you wanted to stay," she said. "You knew I didn't. I knew you had another opportunity. I didn't know how much it mattered. You didn't ask." "No." Her agreement left nowhere for my anger to push. She patted the bench beside her. I sat. "Your father has lost 6 pounds," she said. "Mom, I'm not asking you to fix it. He's trying to do estimates and client calls at the same time, so he forgets lunch. He should hire someone." "He did. She starts Monday." "Good." Mom looked toward the shower fixtures. "See? I'm learning." She took my hand for a moment. "I am proud of you," she said. "Thank you. And I'm sorry I made being needed sound like the same thing as being loved." It was too neat a sentence for Mom. I suspected she had rehearsed it. It still mattered. Dad arrived 40 minutes late. I saw him through Naomi's front window, standing on the sidewalk in his good boots and a sport coat he wore to client dinners. He looked at the porch, the new lights, and the people moving behind the glass. Then he went back to his truck. I thought he was leaving. He returned carrying the framed floor plan from my old office. "You forgot this," he said when I opened the door. "I packed it." "You left it leaning against the wall. I thought it belonged there. You drew it." He handed me the frame. "Come in," I said. Dad stepped inside and immediately examined the baseboards. It was how he managed being in a room he had feelings about. "Eli's corners are clean," he said. "I'll tell him you noticed. He'll pretend not to care." "He will." Naomi appeared and took Dad by the arm. "Glenn Bennett," she said. "You tried to sell me an addition. You bought a whole second house instead. Your daughter made it make sense." Dad glanced at me. Naomi pulled him toward the kitchen. "Look at my purse shelf. This is the most important 6 square feet in Ohio." "It's not 6 square feet," Dad said. "You haven't changed." She walked him through every room, naming decisions I had made, not presenting evidence, not exposing him, simply telling the story of her own home. Dad asked practical questions. Why had we chosen that door swing? Where was the original plumbing? How much had the drainage repair cost? Eli joined us, and the 2 men disagreed about the porch foundation within 6 minutes. Lacey found me in Ruth's kitchen. "Dad's having fun," she whispered. "He's arguing." That is fun for him. Near the end of the afternoon, Dad stood in the shared vestibule. Naomi's door was open. Ruth's was closed, her signal that she wanted a break from guests. Light from the 2 front windows crossed on the floor between us. "3 clients have asked where you went," he said. I waited. "The new operations manager seems competent. She hasn't started. I spoke to her twice. That's practically family." He ignored that. "The outside design consultant costs more than I expected. I know what they charge. Lacey may leave too." "She told you?" "Last night. How did you take it?" "Badly." That honesty surprised me. Dad looked through the open door toward Naomi's kitchen, where Mom was wrapping leftover banana bread nobody had requested. "I've been thinking about the company structure," he said. "Dad, let me finish." I did. "You could come back as a design partner, equal authority on projects, separate project leads, shared credit when work is shared. We'd hire enough operational support that you wouldn't be doing both jobs." It was almost everything I had asked for. A few months earlier, I would have accepted before he reached the end of the sentence. "Why now?" I asked. "Because you were right." "About what?" He rubbed his braced wrist. "The work was mixed together. I relied on you more than I acknowledged, and now clients are asking." "That too." The honesty made refusal harder. "I already have a partner." His face tightened. "The contractor. Eli. You've known him a few months. He knows what my work is. I know what your work is. You knew what it was useful for." Dad looked away. "I'm not coming back," I said. "What if I put everything in writing? It isn't about whether the offer is real. I believe you." "Then what?" "You offered me a place after the old one stopped working for you. I needed you to see me while I was still standing in it. I see you now." "I know." He looked older again, but not defeated. Dad was too stubborn for defeat. He would hire people, complain about their salaries, and learn to run a company that could not depend on either daughter staying exactly where he put her. We walked into Naomi's side together. He stopped beside the fireplace wall. It was simple: plaster, walnut storage, no television high enough to injure anyone, not a copy of Franklin, but unmistakably related. Dad ran his hand along the shelf. "I didn't know you had this in you," he said. I looked at him. "You did know," I said. "You just knew I'd keep giving it to you for free."